Welcome all. This is the Environmental Protection Commission special meeting and public hearing of this Tuesday, September 10th, 2024. My name is Jim Millard. I'm standing in for Eric Houston, who's traveling. We welcome all of you. Thank you for being here. I think Rick may have had a couple of pieces of homework for us before we kick off the meeting.
I think the first thing we want to do is just make an announcement that one of the agent approvals that is on the agenda for 3 Holly Lane is being pulled from the agenda, which is the last item, 17-2024. Activities that occurred on the site that don't qualify for an agent approval, and in fact there's been encroachments into regulated areas, so we'll be reworking that and conducting other activities to bring the site to compliance.
Very good.
It will not be heard tonight.
Any other updates for us?
No.
So we should kick it off with the first item on our agenda for tonight in this special meeting and public hearing, EPC Number 20, 2024, with respect to 104 Old Kings Highway North, Old Kings Highway North 104 LLC, and 108 Old Kings Highway North by Old Kings Highway North number 108 LLC. The project is to demolish existing residential structures and construct 2 new 3-story apartment buildings, parking, walkways, drainage, and other related features in and proximate to a watercourse. The properties lie along the west side of Old Kings Highway North, approximately 1,625 feet north of Brookside Road, and are identified as follows in records held by the Darien tax assessor: 104 Old Kings Highway North, map 35, lot 17, zone DB, which is listed as plus or minus 0.2101 acres, in concert with 108 Old Kings Highway North, map 35, lot 18, zone DB, which is also is listed as plus or minus 0.22 acres.
So, Vice Chairman,
Thank you, Rick.
I'm going to offer some comments, briefly describing some housekeeping measures, and also just a brief staff perspective on the application, summary of the site characteristics, and some of the issues that you should be in tune with as you're reviewing this application. As you noted, the application is for the construction of 2 3-story apartment buildings on the property, drainage, walls, and other related activities. Those activities are occurring within proximate to a intermittent watercourse that's on the property. From the administrative perspective, this item made its way to the agenda back at the August 7th meeting. That meeting agenda was posted by the town clerk. A memo concerning the acceptance procedures of the board was prepared. The application was accepted at that August 7th meeting, and at that meeting the commission determined that a public hearing on this matter would be required, 1 for public interest, and 2 with the potential of significant adverse impact on wetlands and watercourses. Follow-up notice was posted with the applicant reporting that information. Section 9 letter was prepared outlining the public hearing procedures. The application, this public hearing, was noticed per the regulations by this agency in the Darien Times twice in accordance with the regulations. The applicant prepared the required individual notice in accordance with the regulations with the time frames set. Also back in August, based on our own observations and the observations of commission members who visited the site, staff prepared a detailed list of information necessary, that it felt was necessary to move forward with the application, highlighting pertinent items and issues that the applicant and their team would need to address. This meeting was outlined on the agenda. It was also filed with the town clerk per standard procedure, and that really takes care of the administrative tasking for this that enables the commission to move forward on the application. Just a very brief summary. You have in your packages, and was posted on Viewpoint, was a brief agenda summary report that was prepared by staff that outlines the plans that are pertinent to this application. And again, those are listed in there: zoning location survey, site development plan, the landscaping plan. There were the architectural plan renderings that were submitted, stormwater management report, the wetland delineation report. There had been correspondence from Matt Pop, environmental consultant, doing an assessment. There had been a tree statement by a Connecticut arborist. There was a project narrative posted, and I think you'll hear from Mr. Gleason this evening that there had been 2 or 3 submittals provided this afternoon that were provided in response to additional questions and concerns that had been not only outlined by staff, but also outlined by the town's consulting engineer for engineering matters. And so those have been uploaded. I can tell you that I had not had the opportunity to review those as of yet, but I'm sure they'll go into detail as how the plans have been amended. All those items are as part of the record, including all the information that we have contained in our files that are highlighted as EPC application 20-24, Old Kings Highway North 104 LLC, 108 LLC. It includes photographs and other things that staff has used in order to develop this brief summary report. So just as a basic description of the property, most of you have, if not all of you, have been to the site. It's currently developed with 2 structures, 2 residences. It has extensive areas of parking. There's a crossing over this watercourse. There are utilities. The regulated areas solely consist of this intermittent watercourse and the 50-foot setback to that watercourse. Other resources on the property include there's some number of larger trees that are generally confined around the perimeter of the site. The property is not in a special flood hazard area. It's not within the 100-year floodplain, but it lies within the 500-year floodplain. Just so you recognize that the regulatory requirements for structural flood proofing, response, and all those kinds of items relate to the 100-year floodplain and not the 500. So the applicant seeks permission to construct these units, and we've identified issues that are pertinent to your review. So the engineer and the landscape professionals have developed plans and reports in response to our concerns. Pertinent issues not only have to do with potential resource impacts and impacts on regulated areas, but drainage, water quality, the quality of mitigation measures are very important. Most important, because this commission determined that a public hearing was necessary because of the potential for significant impact on regulated areas, wetlands and watercourses, or watercourses in this case. Please be reminded that the finding of that prudent and feasible alternatives do not exist, has to be examined. So there will be a close examination of alternatives that may be available to the applicant to reduce impacts or to reduce the encroachments. Some of the highlights, there's approximately, and I just wanted to get this into the records, about 10,700 square feet or 0.25 acres of the under review area is affected by this proposed construction, and about 54 linear feet of watercourse. If you review the plans, you will note the watercourse is affected by 3 potential crossings. Not just the existing roadway crossing will remain, but 3 individual crossings for utilities. Cuts and fills, overall grade changes is really in the low range, with cuts and fills not expected to exceed 1 to 3 feet. You will note that the encroachments are rather extensive into the 50-foot buffer, with major project elements such as the residential buildings laying approximately 5 feet to the watercourse, and walls and drainage and other features can encroach even up to 2 feet of the watercourse. The applicant reports that 5 trees of size will be lost as a result of the construction. If you review the plans, given the proximity of development to other trees both on and off the property, there may be others that are affected by the development. Drainage is an important concern. Project engineer did a drainage analysis, has determined to manage the post-construction runoff by developing plans and report. They intend to create and manage 2 post-construction watersheds, with the vast majority of the dwellings, the paved space being directed to a very large bank of infiltrators. Test holes have been provided to establish feasibility. And the remainder of the site in that second watershed is going to be allowed to flow along the current pathways and discharge as it currently does. The project engineer has confirmed that with their initial submittal, that for storms ranging 2 to 50 years in intensity, there'd be no adverse impact on drainage adjoining properties or increases in the peak rate of runoff. The information was supplied by staff to the town's consulting engineer, and a list of pertinent issues has been drafted and provided to the applicant. I believe with the submission of today's plans and Mr. Canis, who has conducted that review on the behalf of the town, he's here tonight to offer comments to the commission. Also pertinent to the drainage plan, there was a basic operation and maintenance plan that has been prepared. Water quality, basic erosion control plan. There's been a water handling plan for the crossings, the proposed crossings, albeit significant additional information needs to be provided in order to establish its applicability. Catch basins will be equipped with deep sumps and bell traps as a first way of treating water quality. Also utilizing infiltration to seize upon soil's ability to cool and treat runoff. And the facilities will be reconnected to the sanitary sewer. There has been a statement from a Connecticut arborist concerning tree impacts. It was very limited in scope, basically saying the trees that have little or no value, they'll do some selective pruning. It was kind of, as in very basic by comparison to some of the other things that we've seen, but perhaps you can solicit some additional information on that. There's been a planting plan prepared that provides for extensive replanting of that very narrow watercourse edge. And in this agenda summary, those that were listed Other things they intend to do, debris removal, invasive management, demarcation features that the commission typically requires. The landscape architect is all, I'm sure he'll expand on it, also provided some basic notes outlining preferred organic land care practices that will be applied to the site. So that's just a basic summary of the scope of this project. Again, be cognizant of, as the presentation made, thinking about, alternatives and the impacts. Follow the guidance of your regulations. And again, you may make reference to my August 15, 2024 letter that also, and that was posted online, that kind of summarizes for all what the commissioner is looking for in an application of this sort. I'm available for questions. I'm sure I'll have questions as the presentation's made, and we'll turn it over to Mr. Gleason.
Thank you, Rick, for your summary and introduction there.
Good evening, everyone. Oh, man.
Sounds like council, you're up.
It sounds like, there we go, okay. So, good evening, thank you for coming out. We appreciate it. I'm here with the applicant owner, Sean Shea, and Andy Sumalides, our engineer, and Matt Pop, our landscape architect. We did submit some materials from Andy's office this afternoon. There was a revised site development plan, which he will review with me, and a response to Joe Canis's comments. Basically, every one of Joe's comments has been addressed by tweaks to the plan or in text. Joe, I don't think has had a chance to review it, so we may not get comments from him or a response, given that it was submitted this afternoon. What I do want to do is take you through, we had talked about it a month ago, but for those of you who have not had a chance to get out there, this is in a remote, it's sort of an isolated site. It's behind Trader Joe's, across from the Japanese restaurant, and on the curve of Old Kings Highway South. So this is one of the buildings, and that's the second one over here. This is the watercourse that is in the front of our property, right in here. You can see the ditch for it. And there is a crossing right here. It's existing, it's been there for a long time. It's actually quite attractively, it's got the stone wall on either side. And these buildings are, shall we say, in disrepair. And they have not been occupied for some time. This is the other building down here. Here's the look at the stone wall with the culvert here. That culvert clogged in the middle of August, and it was due to debris that had built up and had not been there. We had that sudden flash flood with 5 inches of rain in like 4 hours. And in fact, Rick sent me some pictures in the morning after, because he went down there and looked at it, and the water had actually gone around this culvert. Sean went down there, and this was totally uncoordinated, but he looked at it, and he pulled a bunch of debris out of this culvert, and the water ran freely, no problem thereafter. That's a maintenance problem, and if this is occupied with apartments, that will not occur. But nobody was paying attention in that sudden flood, but actually Sean came down shortly after Rick was there, and it worked out fine. So we are, so that's that picture. Then let's go to the next one. This is the tennis club behind us, Kings Highway Tennis. And we have a fence in the back. It's a wire fence. And some of the macadam, or the driveway here, encroaches 4 to 6 feet onto the tennis court property. We intend to fix that. Well, we do intend to put an 8-foot fence on this side to screen it out more. And I'm turning to the next picture. This is on the north side of the property, looking over at the Japanese restaurant. You see that there? The watercourse here is not on our property. It's actually on Trader Joe's property, right in here. and then it turns, makes a sort of a 90-degree turn, and comes down across the front of our property on the east side. So it's located on our property adjacent to the street, but it's on Trader Joe's property to the north. And here's some of the trees that are along that watercourse and on our property. So here's the existing survey. I'm gonna load this up a little bit. Okay, so you have two existing residences here, or office buildings. They've been used as office buildings variously. And the regulated area is called out here, 50 feet from the watercourse. This is an intermittent watercourse. It's dry a large part of the time. And the watercourse itself is here. And it was flagged by our wetland scientist, Alexandra Monk. And so these buildings will be raised, and we're gonna take the two properties and merge them. So they'll be a little under half an acre, 0.45 acres or so, a little over that. And this is in a DB zone. That's a design business zone, which is a transition zone from the central business district. The central business district allows you to have buildings in the Corbin district, which is part of that. They're going to be 5 stories high and up to, I think, 85 feet. You were involved recently in an application at the on Sedgwick Avenue, opposite Goodwives, where there was a building in a flood zone, 100-year flood zone, and that is up on stilts with 3 stories. And so it's essentially a 4-story building that is allowed in the central business zone. We went in to talk to the director of planning and zoning and the chairman of the Planning and Zoning Commission. And we were aware of that Sedgwick application, and we said, we'd like to do the same thing at this site. It's isolated, nobody's gonna see it. 4 stories would work. We could put parking underneath. It would have, it would work better. And we were told on no uncertain terms that we were going to have buildings with no parking underneath, no stilts, and it had to be, and we need P&Z amendments to the regulations in order to put dwelling units on the first floor. We were advised that Planning and Zoning anticipated making that change when they did the town plan. Recently did the town plan, but never got that into the regs. So we have an application to the Planning and Zoning Commission seeking to allow dwelling units on the first floor and a certain number of adjustments to the regulations, parking setbacks, things like that, that we have to do in order to proceed with the project that we're proposing now, which is 12 units of elderly housing, with 14% of them being affordable. That's 1.68 units of affordable housing, one of which will be on site and the other will do a fee in lieu, pay a fee in lieu. And because we're restricting the market to elderly, these are not going to be prime units. These are pretty bare bones. The design is bare bones. There is no basement here. There is no pool. There are no garages. Amenities that you expect aren't there. We do have an elevator to get you up to the 3rd floor and down, or the 2nd floor and down. But these are compact units, 2 bedrooms. They're less than 1,000 square feet each. And because of the restrictions that we have to do in order to meet planning and zoning, the financial viability of this was questioned by the chairman of P&Z when we met with them. He said, I don't know if this is going to be a profitable project for you. So we're on the edge in terms of feasibility. There isn't a lot of room to tweak this and move things away from the wetlands based on And by the way, the chairman of P&Z is an appraiser, professional appraiser. He does this for a living. He deals with this sort of stuff. And I'm just quoting what he said when we met with him. We haven't, Sean wants to do this. He thinks it's the right thing for this site. And so he is looking to proceed to get the zoning approvals, assuming he can get the changes that P&Z that we need to have from P&Z, and go forward. We also have ARB to go through. We're not looking for any variances, we're looking for adjustments to the regulations to allow this to happen. And the major adjustment is dwellings on the first floor in the DB zone, which currently are not allowed. We had encouragement from P&Z staff and the chairman that the adjustments we seek would be met with favorably by P&Z, but no guarantees. So to make this financially viable, we need to, we're looking at 12 units, one of which will be affordable. And these are not units that are going to sell for $1 million. I mean, 2-bedroom unit, less than 1,000 square feet, no garage, no pool, no basement storage. These are hitting a market that's different, and it's an elderly market. Elderly under the zoning regs is age 62 and up. So this is not something that a young family's going to move into, unless it's a, anyway. You're just not going to see that here. And these are not top-notch units that are going to sell for a lot of money. But there's a need for this. This is something that's really needed. And it's part of the town plan to diversify this housing stock in town. And so this fits within P&Z's objectives. And it targets something that I don't think there's another development that does this. You have the development on the old Noble property that was, that Penny Glassmeyer did a number of years ago. It was top-notch, you know, really expensive stuff. This is hitting something else. So people who want to retire or elderly that are looking to downsize and get rid of all their stuff because there's no storage room, this would be a suitable place for them. In terms of impacts that you need to look at, it's really the proximity of what we're proposing to the watercourse. And so I thought I'd ask Andy to come up. We are 5.7 feet, I think, from the wetlands here. And that's the corner of the building. And this retaining wall, you've tweaked that, Andy, in certain respects. And you've made a number of other adjustments in light of Joe Canis's comments. But basically, these are two buildings. Each of them is 3 stories. When you do affordable housing in the DB zone, you can go to 3 stories. And each building is a mirror of the other. So they face each other, they're basically the same. And the site plan is the same for both. And there's no room at the end. We have a central corridor in each, stairway with an elevator in the center of both buildings, with some small patios on the back. And the total square footage is about 14,400. 12 apartments under 1,000 each. So that leaves you a little over 1,000 square feet in each for your corridor, your access corridor and your elevator. This is very efficiently designed. We have a central parking area that ties with the existing driveway. And using this was very important because we don't have to mess with the wetlands. We're preserving the existing causeway that gets from Old Kings Highway to our site. We're going to make some improvements to it, but minor changes. And then we have all our parking lot is here, and we have some landscaping stuff around that, but it's all minimal. And with elderly housing, we are required to have 1.5 parking spaces per unit. So we need 18 spaces. And we get them in here, and we also get a place for a dumpster and for trash and recycling that would be in the back here. And we're gonna correct the encroachment on the neighbor's property. And we plan to put an 8-foot fence along the tennis court property and an 8-foot fence along the water course here, possibly. But in the front yard, it'll be reduced to a 4-foot fence, and we may have an 8-foot fence on the back side here. There is an existing fence that the neighbor to the south of us has installed, and we haven't really finalized that. At this point, I'd like to we will be installing utilities, so electric, water, and sewer underground. The electric will go over the culvert, between the driveway and the top of the culvert, be encased in concrete, and we will have the water lines, including the fire suppression line, which is separate. This will be sprinkled buildings, with a water feed line on the north side here, and the sewer line on the south side. And those are the crossings that Andy will describe to you how that happens. There are potential construction impacts due to the proximity of the watercourse or the development to the watercourse. And Andy will describe how we will address that with minimal foundations. We have a slab-on-grade construction, which means you don't have to go down as deep. And Andy knows, this is beyond my pay grade, so I need Andy to describe that to you. And none of the retaining walls will require foundations. They're low. So, and Andy's designed them or modified the design to reduce any potential for impacts. And then Matt has designed a landscaping plan, and with soil and erosion controls, we should be able to do this without any impact on the watercourse, which is what your concern is, the watercourse itself. The current, and of real importance to you, is the fact that existing storm water flows off of our site untreated. It just flows. And mostly it flows, we're at high at about 100 here and 97 plus down here. So there's a 3-foot drop from the northwest corner to the southeast corner. So that's pretty gradual over the several hundred feet that is. And water basically is going to shed into this water course, and it does so now without any treatment whatsoever. Andy's design holds on site the water you get in a 50-year storm. It pre-treats it, cleans it so the particulates are gone, and the thermal pollution that you get now will be over. And so for those reasons, what happened here? Sorry, guys. So what you're going to get is a significant improvement to water quality. And we have also committed to cleaning up the portion of the watercourse on our property, removing debris. If there's invasives there, we'll take care of those. We will remove the debris, and there will be an enhancement planning plan that Matt will talk about. So while we are close to the watercourse, and this is an intermittent watercourse in a 500-year floodplain, we are going to improve substantially existing conditions as a result of this development. So at this point, I'd like to turn it over to Andy. And Andy, pull up your plan and go through changes, or if you want to do it just from that. So,
I'm old school, I got the board still. We appreciate that.
Especially when this isn't working. Good evening. For the record, my name is Andy Sumalides. I'm a principal and professional engineer with Landtech at Westport. I'll quickly run through the existing conditions, and that's what's shown right here on the board. As Attorney Pearson mentioned, in terms of the drainage, there is no drainage infrastructure currently on the property, so all runoff goes off untreated. Under existing conditions, there's about 10,000 square feet of impervious area. Of that, about 7,000 square feet is driveway, right? And that's where you get most of your pollutants, is on your driveway and asphalt areas from, no worries. From leakage of oils and gases from the cars and the such. Roof runoff is technically, quote unquote, somewhat cleaner as it comes off of a roof. So that's what you're looking at for in terms of existing conditions. The property is serviced by sewer and water currently, and we'll need to upgrade those facilities and those utilities for our proposed development. Under proposed conditions, we're looking at about 13,000 square feet of impervious surfaces, about a 3,000 square foot increase. But we're only looking at about 5,600 square feet of new driveway. So about a 1,400 square foot reduction in that driveway. And how are we treating that driveway and roof runoff? So we're essentially capturing all the roof runoff through gutters, piped into these catch basins in the four corners of this parking court. You come in here, as you heard earlier, we're maintaining that existing crossing over the watercourse, and then you have parking on either side servicing each building. Drainage pitches to each corner of that parking lot via catch basins. Those catch basins are then piped into two separate hydrodynamic separators, and those are basically mechanical manhole structures that treat the runoff. There's soil chambers and a mechanical system built within those structures that treats the runoff. It removes solids, sediment, and also hydrocarbons and phosphorus. So those are mechanical systems that do that. Those then get piped into this fairly substantial concrete gallery system, infiltration system. So those are 2-foot high concrete galleries, a very significant footprint. The purpose of that footprint is to promote infiltration and also to provide that necessary separating distance from restrictive soil conditions below it to promote that infiltration. So we're treating from in terms of a water quality perspective, you're getting pre-treatment through the catch basins, another secondary pre-treatment through these hydrodynamic separators, and then further treatment through infiltration of these concrete galleries. These concrete galleries are also sized to reduce the 2 to 50 year storm. And as you good folks are aware, in Darien you have to do a fresh meadow approach. So what does that mean? We don't get credit for that 10,000 square feet of impervious surface that currently exists on site. We need to take it and it's mimicked as grass. So our task is to reduce this site as basically grass to a post condition with all of this impervious that's on there. So that is what the design does, and it meets those requirements. Overflow from those systems for the 100-year storm would go and discharge to a level spreader in the northeast corner of the property and ultimately into the watercourse and through. So that in a nutshell is how the drainage is handled on site. In terms of utilities, as we discussed, we would need to do 2 temporary watercourse crossings for our utilities. One is here on the northern side of our entrance, which brings in our water service, fire and domestic. And then on the south portion of our driveway, existing driveway, through the watercourse with our new sewer line. As mentioned earlier, electric will go underground over the culvert that exists today and be concrete encased for the minimum amount of cover that it'll have. In order to build these, to to get the utility connections in, we will do a temporary dewatering plan. So for this temporary disturbance, we will be putting in sandbags on the northern end, putting in a pump system and pumping the water around our work area and past. Again, this is an intermittent water course. There's sometimes no flow here, so it is recommended, this work is done during, not a weather event, right? We can understand when the weather event is gonna happen and propose this work when there's probably gonna be 0 to no flow. In this intermittent water course, this work probably takes 2 to 3 days max to get that utility in. You could probably do each one in a day's worth of work, get the utilities through, and then restabilize the banks of that water course. So again, it's a very quick, minimal disturbance, temporary disturbance that will then be reestablished, and you'll hear in a little bit from Mr. Pop how that gets reestablished and enhanced as part of our plan. Again, there's your typical sediment barriers, double row silt fence, construction entrance, and the such, street sweeping to maintain that disturbance on site during construction and prevent any mitigation of soils off-site and into the water course. Just to jump back a little bit, we did receive comments in the last week from the third-party engineer, Mr. Canis, who's here tonight, who I think you'll hear from also. What we did in response to those comments, just high level, is there was concern about retaining walls and how close proximity they were to the edge of the water course banks. We were able to eliminate the one on the north side completely. How we did that was by regrading the slate to eliminate those. We were also able to reduce this one considerably in height. Again, it'll be less than a 2-foot wall, not an engineered wall, no footing is required. As you heard earlier, the buildings are on slab, so all you need to do is excavate about 42 inches down to put in the footing, and then you come up with your wall and then you pour your slab. So very minimal digging is required, or excavation work is required for the installation of the buildings, for the retaining walls, and for the site in general. The cut fill numbers on the site are very minimal. It's actually a cut site, and even though we're filling a good portion of the middle of the site to help with our drainage infrastructure, when you install all that drainage infrastructure, obviously there's voids there, so we calculated that, as well as the pavement section that's required for constructing this. And the number is, I think it was a net cut of 85 cubic yards. So very minimal earthwork is really required and site disturbance in order to make this a viable project. I'll just run through some of these comments from Ty and Bond again. Question about the existing culvert. It is in good condition. We mimicked the drainage to overflow to the level spreader before we had them bubbling out of the catch basins. So we revised that. We talked about the regrading to minimize impacts of walls and the such directly adjacent to the watercourse. Some of these are just cleanup items that you already heard of. We talked about the construction of the utilities, proximity of those utilities to that culvert, and
You move the utilities further away from the culvert.
correct.
Right?
So just not to impact the culvert, we pushed the utilities further away to the north and south of that entrance to make sure we don't impact that culvert at all. And that's in general, the cleanup items that we did in response to the comments from the third-party engineer. We also beefed up the plan, I would say, in terms of soil erosion, and these were comments from staff. So we addressed comments that we also got from staff in a letter dated August 15th. So one of the two really pertaining to the site civil work were items 5 and 6. 5 was really piggybacking on Mr. Canis's report and some of those items which we've addressed, as well as item number 6 was really beefing up the soil and erosion controls on the property, which we did. I'm happy to answer any questions or turn it over to Mr. Pop to go over the landscaping.
Good evening, Matthew Poplar, architect, professional wetland scientist with Environmental Land Solutions out of Norwalk. We've prepared the environmental assessment, the wetland landscape plan that we submitted. I was a 16-year member of the Greenwich Wetlands and Watercourses agency some time ago, and have been the Bridgeport wetland consultant for over 30 years, 32, 33 years. We've been doing that. I've been before you many times. Just going to go quickly over the existing conditions. As Wilder noted, there's 2 structures on the site. Again, the Old Kings Highway North is down here. Structure, 1 house here, the 2nd house here. One thing when you go out there where you notice is there's quite a bit of asphalt, the driveway in the front. Typically you would have the driveway in the front, maybe a little bit in the back, but the driveway wraps around to the rear of this house, and then it wraps all the way around this house over here, the northern house. So a lot of asphalt on the site. Again, the watercourse comes around just off the site on this property line here, and then enters the site here, comes through here, and there's again the crossing, existing wetland crossing there. The watercourse corridor has like a low flow channel. Maybe it's about a foot deep or so, 18 inches deep by 18 inches wide. So most of the flow is in that, and when there's a larger event, it overtops that low flow channel. The vegetation on the site, a lot of non-native invasive plants, as you typically would find them in a project like this. But there is a red maple, Norway maple, Atlantis, catalpa, privet, multiflora rose, some Japanese holly. Again, the watercourse in the front here, the corridor is about 10 to 15 feet in width. A lot of it right now is maintained as, looks like it was lawn not too long ago that was uncut. So right now the grasses are probably like a foot in height. So again, most of the buffer around the watercourse, in the watercourse, uncut lawn. And there's also there's a white pine, there's some Norway spruce, English ivy, there's smartweed, jewelweed, Virginia creeper growing amongst the field grasses. The watercourse functions, we use the Army Corps of Engineers booklet for functions. It's limited, the function, mainly because it's a small size, disturbed nature. The roadway right next to it, the roadway is only about 15 feet or so from the watercourse corridor. But the primary functions, again, as you would anticipate, is the conveyance of surface water. It does have some secondary functions, like groundwater discharge. Groundwater that enters the ground through here comes underground and discharges within the watercourse. It does provide some floodwater storage, as I think we noted. There was some backing up of water above the road. Sediment retention, nutrient removal by plants. Again, that's the plants removing fertilizers and things like that by plant uptake. Some minor wildlife habitat, and then like most wetland systems, they do provide some food for wildlife. Again, those are secondary functions. This is the landscape plan which we prepared. Again, the 2 buildings come down, and we're building 2 new buildings with the central parking area here. We're maintaining that existing crossing, wetland crossing, or watercourse crossing right here. As Mr. Palomelli noted, approximately 5 trees are to be removed. There's kind of 3 of them over here. Another one right through here. The drainage, I think it was explained in detail how it's being handled. Again, right now, stormwater, there is no drainage system, so any runoff that hits the parking areas, the roofs, kind of just sheet flows down, into the watercourse corridor. So there's no treatment. And the drainage system we're proposing now has a significant amount of treatment, which is great, improves the water quality greatly for the watercourse corridor at the bottom of the sheet. The landscape plan here, we're proposing 4 shade trees. Shade trees are the larger growing trees, mainly 3 in the front and another one over here. Unfortunately, there is a sightline issue, so we couldn't get any larger trees in this area here. So again, there's 3 shade trees. When you get to just kind of the southern portion of the watercourse, there's 5 small understory trees. We have another understory tree here. So a total of 6 understory trees. We have a couple of American holly back here, mainly for screening and for wildlife habitat. But we are proposing a boulder row along kind of the front property line, right through here, and through here, and that boulder row enters here and here. In the area downslope of the boulder row will be maintained in the natural state, so no lawn areas within those areas. And those boulders, they may be partially sunken into the ground, so they look a little bit more natural. Again, the main idea was, for the plantings, was to create wildlife habitat, to reduce thermal impacts. Again, the large shade trees shading the driveway, shading the watercourse, reducing the water temperature. So I guess the functions along the watercourse corridor are enhanced. Lighting, there's no pole lighting, so we just have a detail over here. There's just a bollard detail. So they're small, I think it's, under about 3.5 feet high bollard lighting. So again, no pole lighting. On the bridge, there's actually some wall lights that kind of shine down. There's a detail here. As noted, there is some temporary impacts to the watercourse corridor with the utilities installation here and here. Just have to make sure that those lines are installed during times when there's anticipated no rain event. I think that would be easy enough to do. So the best management practices, I think some of these have already been touched upon. The erosion controls to prevent erosion during construction. You've got the level spreader, the silt fence, anti-tracking pavement. The catch basins are fitted with sumps to collect any sediment off the driveway before it gets into the underground detention galleries, because the underground detention galleries which infiltrate runoff, again reducing thermal pollution. We have the planted watercourse corridor here, again mainly to reduce thermal pollution, enhance wildlife habitat. Also the plantings stabilize the banks. One thing about the project which I kind of like is there's very, very little lawn area, mainly just around the perimeter of the rear of the buildings in this western section of the site, and a little bit of lawn area here. So very, very little lawn area. We did add some NOFA notes, which are how to maintain the site in an environmentally friendly manner. Mainly those notes, they're somewhat general, and the notes go over, before you fertilize the site, you should get the soils tested so you know what you're using. If you have an irrigation system, you're not watering right after it rains. If you use organic fertilizers, you're selecting plants that are native to the region. And most of these plants are native. I think all of the trees and all of the shrubs, or a majority of the shrubs, are native. There's a couple of ground covers in through here that aren't native. And just if there's any wildlife issues, just to trap wildlife or repel wildlife in a friendly manner. Again, it's an existing developed site with 2 houses that are going to be removed. The functions of the watercourse corridor through here, relatively minor. With the drainage plan and the landscape plan, I think those wetland functions would be enhanced. And, yeah, let's see. I think that's, I'll end with that, if there's any questions.
I have a question. Do you anticipate any negative impacts as a result of this development on the functioning of the watercourse?
No, the only issue I would have is just gotta make sure that we install the utilities and when it's a no flow. And that would be like a short-term impact, so no long-term impact.
As long as you're on utilities, Counselor. Matt, I had a question as I was reviewing everything in the package. So those utilities, the water and fire suppression, are they going below the watercourse?
That's,
Yes.
Bring the expert in?
We gotta bring in the engineer.
Yes, they are.
Good, okay.
Yeah. The water lines are typically installed below frost, so they don't freeze. So yes, they'll be below the water.
And then the electric runs across the top of the culvert, is that correct?
Correct. And it'll be concrete encased around the top of the culvert. Currently, electric is served overhead. With any new developments, Eversource likes all their lines buried. So we'd be taking that overhead wire and burying it.
Thank you.
So since these are all gonna be apparently electric heated units, what's the amperage load that's gonna go in there and what kind of panel are you going to have? Because to get heating units in all these units, you're gonna have quite a bit of
Overhead line.
underground lines,
Right.
yeah.
It's a little outside my expertise, but I'll try and answer it. We are proposing a new transformer on site, and that's cited on our plan. So with this, that transformer is not sized yet. We haven't gone and met with the utility company to determine loads or anything like that. That would be mechanical, electrical, and plumbing engineers when they get involved with the next phase of this. If we successfully make it through your agency and then planning and zoning, that's typically when they get involved, when we get into construction drawings, and then the electrical engineer will provide a load letter to the utility company, and then they'll assist with
And I'm
sizing.
just thinking of the conduit from the Eversource line on the street, you're going over the culvert, so will you have the capacity to do that over the culvert?
Yeah, I don't anticipate it being an issue.
I'm sorry, so all utility, just for the record, all utility to building A and building B will intersect the watercourse below the frost line of the watercourse. And the frost line being 42 inches?
Correct.
Okay. So is that 42 inches from the bottom elevation of the watercourse?
Correct.
Okay. So for the record, for building A, what would be the bottom elevation of the watercourse today?
So the bottom is roughly elevation 96, 95.
For building B? You were looking to the right?
I'm
So
looking
that's
for these
building-
water lines.
So,
that are gonna
right,
cross.
so that's for building B is
Right.
96?
So this water line comes through and it services both buildings.
Does the same follow true for all the other utilities?
So there's one line that comes in for fire and one for domestic for water lines, so it's 2 separate water lines. That'll come in at one crossing here and then split off and service both buildings. Electric will come from this pole underground over the existing culvert to a transformer here, and then that transformer from here will feed both buildings. The sewer will come underground here, and it comes off in the similar, it splits off in 2 directions.
And so is the electric in let's say, a 4-inch pipe, a 6-inch pipe?
There'll be multiple conduits, right? You'll need for your service, your primary service, then your secondary, your telecom. All that will be in a trench through here, depending on how many conduits we need. So it's usually one duct bank.
What is the depth of the culvert currently?
Currently, there's about, I think there's about 18 inches.
So basically what you're going to do is excavate the top of that culvert, lay all of your conduit, your chases inside of the top of that culvert.
Correct. Or
and then
concrete.
pour concrete back on top of that.
Correct.
And I would imagine a large portion of the top of that culvert would be designated for utility, for the electric.
Correct. So all your utilities will be in that duct bank, and they'd probably be in one line, right? Instead of, sometimes you could stack them, there's different orientation, there'll be one line conduit, in a row, going over that top of that culvert.
So approximately how wide is the culvert currently?
The culvert now is 20, plus or minus 20 feet. I can get a scale.
Okay, no, that's
Get a
okay. Okay,
dimension.
so the culvert's approximately 20 feet wide, and how many pipes do you have to lay down on top of that culvert to run your
So
utility?
conduit's like a 4-inch pipe, right, or multiple 4-inch and then a couple 3-inch. So you're probably looking at 4 pipes, 4-inch pipes, call it.
Okay, 4-inch pipes.
Correct.
So a very small portion of the top of the culvert needs to be disturbed, is
Correct.
what you're saying? Okay. Rick, just a zone, this would be a zoning question, but it'd be certainly pertinent to EPC, is does the existing culvert meet the specification for emergency ingress and egress, or DPW for a commercial site?
We have looked at that, just so you know, and it's part of P&Z. And we have assured, we have a traffic engineer who's looked at it, and trucks can get in and get out.
So Rick, my question is does the applicant meet the building code to use that culvert for the proposed work? Like if, as a commissioner, I'd like to know if the code would require that culvert to get bigger.
I don't know.
Right. So it's not germane because it would be prudent for the commission to know if there needs to be construction on that culvert to meet ingress and egress traffic codes. Because Mr. Gleason, to the eye, it doesn't appear to be particularly large. When you put 2 commercial structures on there, one would think I need to get an emergency vehicle going in one direction and a fire truck maybe going in the other. Can the two fit on that culvert? Does that meet DPW regulation?
I haven't asked that question. We did have a traffic engineer look at it. It's sufficiently wide. And then I guess the other question would be, is it sufficiently strong to accommodate a fire truck going over it and an ambulance going the other way? It's a good question. I can't answer it now. I'm happy to check.
Sure, it's 22 feet wide, and typically you need 20 feet wide for emergency vehicles.
Low volume roads are 20 feet wide.
I don't know the regulation, I'm just thinking, it's an old bridge, it's an old overpass.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe you need to do work on it.
Any other questions?
Go ahead.
I have a couple questions. So you mentioned that the underground detention is capable of handling up to the 50-year storm. But in the event that we have the occasional 100-year storm, what happens?
So in a 100-year storm, this obviously all fills up, and then it starts coming out of this level spreader.
And can you just discuss the distance between the level spreader and to the watercourse?
We're talking about like 3-4 feet.
3 or 4 feet, okay. And in addition to the overflow from the underground units, there's also runoff from, I think, patios and sidewalks that go into the level spreader?
There's this one sunken patio here. It's more of an egress for emergency. Not getting into details of the architecturals, but this is for emergency out of the rear of the building here. So this is at a lower elevation, so we have a drain here that picks that little bit up and then directs it to that level spreader.
Okay.
The rest of it, the majority of it would sheet flow off,
And-
like it does today.
And the size of the level spreader is?
The length of it is 15 feet.
15 feet, okay.
Yeah.
And then I just had a question, I think it was in your stormwater management report. It was mentioned that stormwater discharge from the site will comply with applicable rules and regulations of the town of Darien. Can you just discuss specifically which rules and regulations you're referring to?
Sure. The approach of the fresh meadow approach and reducing the storm events for the 2 to 50-year storm,
Okay,
as well as the water quality requirements,
okay,
which is 1 inch runoff off of new impervious surfaces. So those 2 requirements.
okay. And let's see, I have some, these units are for sale, not for rent, I think.
Not necessarily.
Oh, not necessarily.
Sean is gonna look at that, he may decide to rent.
Okay. And can you just discuss, you discussed how the watercourse is sort of for, it's an intermittent watercourse for like rain and things like that, runoff. Where does it flow to?
It flows to the south towards, and crosses over towards the Good Rise River, I presume.
So it meets up with the Good Rives River?
Yeah, correct.
Okay, and on the north side, it's not on your property, it's on the neighboring property. And that's kind of I was just looking at it today, it's pretty, and I have sort of, because it's at Trader Joe's, I historically looked at it. It does get very full at times, and I noticed that as it goes around that 90-degree, makes that 90-degree turn, it's much less wide and much less deep. So sort of historically, have you looked at what happens during big storm events and like for over what period of time and what happens?
Sure.
I can add to that, I'm the neighbor. Can I add?
Sure. So we ran some numbers. There's this software called Stream Stats, which gives you analysis of flows within bodies of water. So we ran those numbers and ran them against the culvert size that we currently have, which was I think about 5 CFS, if I remember correctly off the top of my head. And this culvert was large enough to handle that flow. So we did look at that and looked at all the offsite implications and what comes through that culvert. We did have that crazy incident in August, and again, it was a maintenance thing. As long as debris and things are kept out of that, we foresee no issues of this culvert functioning properly.
Okay.
Carolyn, just for your benefit, for everybody's benefit, I think I read in the paperwork that this drains to Dunlop Lake,
Okay.
which may be also Goodwise River, I'm unsure of that, but it says in this package somewhere that I read that it goes to Dunlop Lake.
Okay, yeah, so it doesn't just disperse somewhere, I mean, it does
No,
go into a body of water.
No, it's got a
Right,
God-made channel somewhere that
right,
happens to end up at Dunlop Lake.
okay, let's see. I had a couple questions about the plantings. Do you want someone else to ask questions?
No, go right ahead, finish
Okay.
up with
Um,
your curious about.
So the boulder demarcation is going to be on the east side. Is it also going to be on that north side?
It's on both sides.
It's on both sides. And So, it's both, up against the road, it's on both sides of the channel. And you had mentioned that you're putting in, I think you mentioned 4 pin oaks and some smaller understory,
Shed, yep.
trees. But are there any other, like, you had mentioned that it's going to be allowed to go into its natural state between the boulders.
So we're also proposing on the Old Kings Highway, the roadside of the Watercourse, blue flag iris.
Okay, I
Like
thought I had seen a list of other
350.
plantings.
They're small,
Right,
you know, they'll just enhance, you know, stabilize the banks. Kind of good for wildlife habitat, it spreads. So-
I mean, my concern is when you had mentioned that it's going to be allowed to go back to its natural state is, you know, there's some invasive material in there now, and I was just wondering, a
Yeah,
little bit?
a little bit,
Yeah.
but you know, again, most of the site it's developed, so it's invasive species, you're just kind of along the perimeter of it,
Right,
so.
right, I was actually gonna ask
Yeah.
about that as well, but so there's gonna be some other smaller plantings that go in between the boulders?
Yeah, so on the roadside of it, again, it's the blue flag iris, like 350 or so. And again, they're plugs, they're small. On the west side of it, they're proposing winterberry, which is, you know, kind of a smaller, one of the small, well, grows 6 to 8 feet in height. Those are kind of along the boulder demarcation here. You know, in the back, we have Lakothi, which is an evergreen, a native plant, a little bit native, a little bit further south than here. The deer don't eat it, so that's kind of why I use it.
Right.
So,
And I know sometimes cultivars are brought in because, for aesthetic reasons and.
well, a lot of times too, if you specify just like a straight version of a plant, yeah, I'm not sure what you actually get once they come from the nursery or once the contractor brings them on site. So, but yeah, so the winterberry, I did have specified 2 cultivars, so male and female, so that we have get the berries. The ilex for the inkberry, I did specify one that kind of stays a little bit lower. It's probably the one that most used.
Just
yeah, so
whenever
there's a few.
possible, you know, especially in the
No.
regulated area, the true natives, you know, I think, you know, increase the conservation value of the regulated area as much as possible if we can use those.
Sure, we
I
can.
noticed on the side of the garage, I was there today for my second visit, and I noticed there's a whole array of beautiful blue lobelia growing there, and the bees were just loving it and everything. Is there any?
The deer didn't need it?
No, it was in beautiful
Yeah.
condition. I was wondering if there was any way that you could sort of put that aside and reuse it somewhere?
Certainly, but where was it? It was on the side?
On the side of the
I'll go
garage,
check, I'll go look.
yeah. And
Yeah,
then,
that's good.
yeah, it was doing very well, and the bees were really enjoying it. And then I think against the west side of the property, it was recommended that some trimming be done to the trees, and there's some invasive stuff there though too, the euonymus. I don't know if is that on your property or not?
I believe it is off the site. So, you know, again, if you take out too much stuff, you're gonna have to replace it. So I think some of that stuff might provide some screening, but we're happy to look at that if you want that to be, you know, really
Yeah, it's just
also. Yeah.
not a good.
No, definitely isn't. Yeah, the deer don't eat it though.
Right, they do not, that's true. And then I appreciate that you put in here that organic land care and, you know,
Yeah.
but going forward, is there some way to sort of institutionalize that, either like, I don't know if it makes sense to put it in the maintenance and operations manual, like add a
Yeah,
paragraph?
I would think there'd be an association, you know, or taking, you know, or maintaining the site, And I would think that would go into that.
And we, because we did this for another
Yeah.
property,
No, that should
we
go
got
in.
it put on the land record as well, just, you know, if the property changes hands.
Yeah, because otherwise no one's looking at the landscape.
Exactly.
I think that's a great idea, and I think it's something that if you approve this, you should stipulate that that be part of the land records. I mean, we're happy to do that.
Okay. And I think I might have a couple other questions, but I'm done for now.
Any other commissioners? Peter?
I do have more, but I don't know if Bill or someone else would like to go.
Just a quick one. What is the, of the .45 acres, what is the percentage that's developed by the buildings and the asphalt parking lot?
That would be, well, it's .45 acres, which is,
I just need the percentages.
well, I'm just,
You don't have to give me acres,
I'm gonna have to.
80%, 90%, 70%?
I
of the
honestly
land?
don't know. And we don't, Andy, you didn't calculate that in your site.
No, I'll do it right now.
We have about 14,400 in the buildings, and then you add the parking.
This includes all the hardscapes, so this
Yeah.
is patios, sidewalks. We have a lot of sidewalks for egress around the building, so that's all the hardscape is about 65%.
60, less than I thought. And the other comment is, you have that very large parking lot. I know you need that, but boy, it just screams for a line of trees right down the middle. I know it's a problem with your engineering, your chambers below, but pretty brutal looking at it from this angle. But it'd be a thought to, and the other thought in there is, we have a big problem with the river flooding downstream. So I know you're going for a 50-year flood zone, but we're trying to impart to a lot of contractors, can you do a little better than that? Can you put, so hold back when we get a bigger storm, we hold more water back and let it flip into the problems downstream?
We could look at that, certainly. I think it needs to just be like implemented townwide, I would say, versus picking certain projects that need to stay here too, because a lot of projects don't come before you, right? And they get away with doing the 50-year, but then other folks have to do the 100 or plus to mitigate it. I think it should be townwide. I think that needs to be looked at. Those rain events are done based on historical data and not really a look ahead. So there is an issue with that,
But you're asking something special here too. So, this is a large amount, very close to our stream that we're in charge of here. And so you're asking for that to be right on top of it, so we should be able to ask for some little effort to help us out too.
Sure, if you were to look at this site from what exists today,
Yeah, but
So what we're
I'm not, I'm trying to see the future here.
no, I'm just saying what exists today in terms of runoff, and we don't take that approach.
Right,
Right.
we don't either, we're
Right.
in the fresh meadows.
Right, so, yeah, we could certainly look at it. Is there a certain standard you want us to look at?
Improve, that's all, we're trying to just.
A certain storm event, I guess.
Yeah, and I don't have, I'm not gonna give you a number on that, but we're just seeing more of it happen.
Right.
We know that stream, that particular piece of it, that tributary is contributing to it, is creating a problem in town,
Right.
along with Stony Brook. And so, the more we can try to figure that out on each new development,
Sure.
better off we're gonna be.
Okay.
That's all I got.
Okay, Michael, Peter, you got your pen ready?
Uh-huh.
All right, so something's not making sense to me. You said that 65% of the, how many acres is this property?
0.45, and we have 13,000
You
square
said
feet.
65% of this .45 acre lot is impervious coverage?
65% of it.
Okay. You have the buildings, those are impervious, correct?
Correct, we have 13,000 square
Let
feet.
me drive a second. You
Okay.
have the parking lot, that's impervious, correct?
Correct.
Okay, and then you have retaining walls that wrap the perimeter and walks, correct?
Yeah, we have walks
And those are
small
counted,
areas.
are those counted as impervious surface?
Correct.
Okay, my eye is looking at this lot, and I don't see 65%. I think a layman would say, oh, that looks like maybe a minimum of 80%? Are we absolutely positive that you are correct, that only 65% of this lot has impervious coverage?
Yes.
Why is
So
it
here's your
that,
property line?
why is it that when you look at it, it doesn't, you understand what I'm saying?
No, I get it,
It's just,
but
the nickels could add up,
I
right?
think I think it's deceiving because of the watercourse, right?
Okay,
So if you look at this, this is all greenery, right? This is all greenery that we're not touching.
okay.
So if you look around the whole entire perimeter, that's all.
Okay, that's a good point. So have you calculated the percentage of the land that does not have impervious coverage? How much, maybe Matt knows the answer to this, what is the percentage of wetland?
There's no wetlands on this property.
What is the percentage of the intermittent watercourse?
That I don't.
So I wanna add
You wanna know out of that
100%.
65%, I mean, out of the, for, the 35%, what percent of that is
The watercourse.
Correct.
Well, actually, wetlands define not just the watercourse, but also
But that area,
50
that area.
feet upland review area as well.
No,
We're forgetting the 50 feet.
No, that's not wetlands, that's the upland review area. It's not a wetland, it's an area
It's a
that is
regulated
regulated.
area.
And you have control over what happens on that, provided you find that what we're creating is a significant impact on the functioning of the watercourse. You only have a watercourse here, and we are actually improving what happens in the watercourse. And in order to say no, you have to find a significant impact and then say, we're doing something. You have no evidence of a significant impact
Mr.
from this
Gleason,
development on the
Mr.
watercourse.
Gleason, a commissioner asked a question,
Yeah,
and you're going down a rabbit hole right now.
yeah, sorry. But I just wanted to correct the
The
commissioner who
50
said
feet is
the
within our
regulated area
regulated
is
area.
not watercourse. It is an area of your jurisdiction, and you can control what happens. in
It's
that
within
area.
our regulated area.
Yeah, it's in your regulated area.
Thank you.
Okay,
We don't have that number.
okay.
I can give you that number.
So what I'd like to know is, of 100% of the land use, what is the percentage of the impervious surface? And what is the percentage of the intermittent watercourse? And then I would say the delta is going to be land that is in the non-upland review area. I'd like to know how.
What's outside the upland too?
Correct. I'd like to see how we surmise 100%.
Sure.
Okay. My next question is, Attorney Gleason made a comment that the intermittent watercourse to the north was not on the applicant's property. And I am looking at the northerly boundary of the property, and I see triangular demarcations for wetlands, and I think they're noted as wetland flags with numbers. So starting from the very top of the map to the northwest, I can see wetland flag number 2.
I stand corrected.
Can I
There
just
is-
finish?
Yeah,
I really don't want to be interrupted, Attorney Gleason.
sorry.
I see wetland flag number 3, which is just outside the applicant's boundary, is that correct?
Wetland flag number 3. Correct.
Okay. And then I see,
Number
I'm starting to show my sign of age, I gotta use a phone to magnify. I think there's another flag, it's not demarcated, but it's next to the maple tree, the 18-inch maple tree.
Yeah.
And that appears to be, let's say, on the property line?
Yep.
Okay. And then we see wetland flag number 5,
Yep.
and that's inside the applicant's property, correct?
Correct.
And then I see wetland flag number 6, and that's well within the applicant's property line, correct?
Correct.
Okay. All right. Now, following up on that, I noticed that there was, I haven't read your response to Joe Canis's comments, but there was discourse regarding retaining walls. Using building B as an example, I see, I think, a retaining wall that is to the northwest and follows behind the building. Is that a retaining wall or is that a walking path? That's a concrete walk?
Yep, there's a retaining wall that supports that wall.
Can you point for me for building B? I believe building B is to the far right on your map. Am I correct?
Oh, building B you're talking about? Oh, I'm
Yeah.
sorry. This wall?
Okay, yes.
Correct.
What is the purpose of that retaining wall?
So, again, this is the design of the building for egress outside. This stairwell, so there's a stairwell here that gets you out at a lower level than your first floor elevation. The architect's not here to describe the components of the building, and I can't articulate it either, but that's an emergency egress outside the rear of the building, and that's what the wall is there for.
Okay, so the elevation of the patio is 100?
Correct.
Okay, and then the elevation of the concrete walkway, presumably there's steps that get you from the patio to the concrete walk?
Correct.
Okay, and then top of wall is 100, going back to 100. So is that, yeah, I would like to know what the purpose of the retaining wall is. I'm confused by that.
It's again for that little, so that lower level comes out at 97.5. You see that in between the two patios?
I do.
Yeah, so the architecturals were uploaded, correct, to the viewpoint. In the architecturals, you will see that there's an egress door that goes out to the rear there, onto that like lower patio, if you want to call it, or lower landing. And then there's steps that get you up to the walkway and up and around.
Is that to hold back the existing grade?
Correct, so the existing grade there is at 100.
I
And
see
that-
the 12, yeah, I guess I'm looking at the map that
Yeah, so
just
this
says 12-inch cherry.
right, this line here is an existing 100-foot contour.
Okay.
So we're putting the wall there because that's, 2.5 feet lower.
And the watercourse, the middle of the watercourse is approximately 98 foot of elevation?
In that location?
Yeah.
Yes.
So the bottom of the watercourse is the same elevation as effectively the walkout, separated by a wall that is 2 feet taller than the bottom of the watercourse.
Correct.
Okay. Okay. Can you tell me what the minimum distances you might have to follow back up with Rick on this, but I'd like to know the answer. Can you follow up and tell the commission what the minimum distances from the wetland, from the edge of the watercourse, so the bank of the watercourse to any structure on the northerly boundary?
The top of the bank or the,
Correct, starting at the northwest corner of building B.
this whole line?
Yeah.
You want these distances
Correct.
at
Correct.
each flag?
I just need one, the minimum, the
The one
minimum
that's
of the
closest.
northerly boundary, the minimum on building B to the northeast,
To the east?
yeah. And then building B would be southeast,
Building
And,
A to the east,
correct.
so the minimum distance from,
Any structure, whether it be a level spreader, maybe what you can do is any stormwater management structure and the building itself. So if you have a level spreader that's a foot from the bank, I'd like to know what that dimension is, and then what the closest is from the building to the water course.
Do you want the pavement too?
I'm sorry, what's that?
The pavement? No.
No, I don't think the pavement is relevant.
Okay.
I'm gonna hold that one off. I was scratching my head on this metric as well. Is you made a representation that the net cut on the property is 85 yards. So 85 cubic yards of dirt is half the capacity of a triaxle dump truck. So you fill that triaxle up to the brim, you could get 200 cubic yards in that, you would agree, right? Okay. We're saying that you're going to cut.
Not 200 cubic yards, 20.
Yeah, right, excuse me, 20 cubic yards, yeah, sorry, right, that would be a really good dump truck.
I know what you're saying, but
We're not
just
fighting
for
gold.
clarity.
Yeah, right, okay. I think the analogy still runs. So, what is the total square footage? Do you know what the total cut, so 48 inches for the entire footprint of the building to put a foundation, how much cut is that? How many cubic yards are you removing?
So in my earlier statement, we didn't calculate the buildings. We calculated the drainage and the pavement section
Right,
in our cut fill.
so
We didn't calculate the footings or foundations in our numbers, so
Right.
it'll be more cut.
So for a monolithic slab, you're gonna cut down like a traditional stem wall foundation. Is it 42 or 48 inches?
42.
Okay, all right, 42 inches. So you're
Put
gonna
in
go around
your footing.
you're gonna go around the perimeter of the building, 42 inches to make a stem wall, and then how thick does the slab need to be for the building?
We're not there yet.
You don't know yet.
No.
Okay, but
So we haven't-
presumably, if it's a structural slab, you're gonna have your footing around the slab, then you're gonna pour, and then you're gonna have basically pin load, you're gonna have incremental footings to hold up the building, because the building's gonna get basically stilted on those loads. on
Yeah,
those
so you have
pillars.
your footing, and you have the
Right.
walls coming up off the footings, then you
Right.
pour your slab.
So, I would like to know how much cut for the structure you're gonna make.
Okay.
And currently, are you showing that the finished slab elevation is at 100 foot of elevation?
I think we're at.
Building B FFE equals 100.5?
Correct.
Okay.
Finished floor elevation.
So the slab, before you do anything for the building, the slab of the building is gonna be 100 foot of elevation, and the bottom of the water course is gonna be at 98 foot of elevation? That's what you have on the map.
Yeah, I'd have to confirm exactly the bottom of the water course. I don't think we shot exactly in the middle, but we can get the bottom elevation.
So I guess the question is,
But yeah, and it
Why-
seems like it's about 98 here, and it flows, and obviously gets
why is the
lower.
slab so low? Why, like,
Right.
almost all applicants come, because I was thinking, and I don't understand this.
Mhm.
Most applicants come and say, we need to fill, because we gotta get this thing up so it doesn't flood.
Right.
Why is that at the same effectively this very similar elevation to the water course?
So there's multiple driving factors, right? There's zoning regs for height that dictate how tall a building can be, right? So that dictates kind of the finished floor. And also the current existing conditions of the site. You can't really get much higher. This kind of controls here, the road, right? So you can't just ramp up, even if we were to rebuild this whole thing and then have a very steep parking lot, right? Like there's parameters in order to access the site. There's minimal access. There's not much room to really bring this up more. We basically brought it up the max we could. I think we had it 8 inches lower at one point, and this is the highest we can get it in terms of just the site parameters to get there.
What nomenclature are we using to describe the culvert driveway? Like, what are we calling that? That little
This culvert,
grid, yeah, what are we calling?
It's-
No,
it's-
to drive over the water course, what are we calling that?
you can call it a bridge, a culvert. It's-
Okay, a bridge, we'll call it a bridge, okay. So, if you could make the bridge higher, if you could have more if you could have more, more pitch, more slope,
Mhm.
a steeper bridge, would you have it so you could have the building higher up?
No,
Okay. Why is that?
because this is pretty much maxed out of what the town regs allow.
Okay. All right. I see the concrete galleys here, and I counted them. I think I count 36 galleys. Is that approximately correct?
72.
There's 70, okay, I was wrong. Okay, way off. What is the bottom elevation of the concrete galleys?
96.8.
Okay. Did you do a test, you did test pit number, DTH number 1? Is that,
Yes.
or no, P-1?
No, that's our perk test?
Yeah, P-1, correct.
Correct.
Where did you find water on P1?
So P1 was a perk test, so we didn't find water in that. We found water in our deep test. So the perk test, the P is for percolation test.
No, I know, okay, you're absolutely correct, and sometimes you dig a perk test and you find water, right?
Right.
So, okay, so when you dug where the Coltex are, where did you find water?
So we found no groundwater. What we found was called modeling, which is called seasonal high groundwater, which is an indication of where the water gets to, so it does this discoloration in the soil condition, and it tells you how high the water does get during high conditions. And that was 42 inches down. And our perk test was dug 30 inches down, a foot above that
Okay.
modeled layer, and that's where the system lies, and that's how we dictate how much infiltration we get.
So does that make sense to you that, I mean, I guess anything's possible, right, because you're just digging the land, but
Right.
it's generally a swampy area. Does it make sense to you that at a 99 foot of elevation, you dig another 4 feet, okay, and you find mottling, but you move, I don't know how many feet that is, back to the intermittent courseway, and you know at 99 foot of elevation, before you even dug, you know there's water there. What, is
Right.
it just a fact? Is you only found mottling at
42 inches down?
42 inches below?
Correct. So when we actually did the testing, there was no water in the watercourse. The watercourse, right? It's intermittent, so it's not always flowing. This watercourse is more of a conveyance of stormwater, and that's when you really see it flowing after a rain event. But it's not flowing all day, every day. And when we did our testing, it was in the summer months, right? So in the drier time. If we go out there, and that's what the seasonal high groundwater is, that 42 inches down, you do this testing, and that's where we probably would find groundwater, at that 42 inches.
So why wouldn't you do, if you were gonna build a multi-million-dollar project, why wouldn't you do your water testing when you know the water's gonna be at its highest?
Because we need to proceed with permitting. So if everybody relied on just doing it when the peak season is, which is like the end of February.
Maybe here's a question, here's the answer that I just thought of, is you don't need to do that because the mottling is there, and the mottling is
Correct.
the high water mark for
Correct.
where the water goes.
Correct.
Okay. Does the applicant know whether there's natural gas available to the site?
No, but we don't
Or
intend
if
to
you
use
would,
that.
no, I'm going somewhere with this. Do you,
The Old Kings Highway Tennis Court Club has natural gas. It's fed by an easement over the property adjacent to it, north of it, or whatever it is, north of it, that fronts on the post road. And so they have an easement. I know this because I
but
was
does that?
But we don't
Right.
front on any street
So
that
if you need
has
to burn
natural
gas,
gas.
so if you need to burn gas, you have to have your own tanks.
It's either we can't use natural gas.
Eversource doesn't have gas in the
Right,
street.
Yankee Gas doesn't
Alright,
serve this.
now, Wilder, you made the comment earlier on the application that these are no-frill condo units that would be sold, but then later you said. No, I know, I'm going somewhere with this. My question is, I have, I see two buildings, and I would say this is where I'm going, is I would say I have more than one location for trash, and that would be a very interesting location as to how a trash truck would get in to get access to all the garbage. But my other thought was, if if these units were to be sold, or however the ownership structure, the management structure of the building is, there might be once upon a time where the applicants come back to the commission and say, we want emergency power. Where would you stick generators on the site, and as part of your application, build that into your plan to future-proof a future request that I think is probably reasonable, that if I was on a condominium association, we might say, hey, we need emergency power. How's emergency power handled now? Like when the power goes out?
Power
you
goes
can't-
out,
it's just
this property is, there's
battery on the
nothing.
lights.
Yeah. It's
Okay. And there's no gas ovens, everything's electric here.
correct.
Rick, is this application a special permit similar to Thorndale Circle? It's not a permit as of right?
For P and Z purposes, that's correct.
Yeah.
We're seeking a special permit, a business site plan approval, potential land filling and regrading permit, and amendments to the
Hey,
regulations.
Gleason, can you tell us, like, what are all the special permits that you're gonna have to go through at planning and zoning as it relates to this commission value on the application?
Special permit is just a special permit, that's it.
Well, so what are they?
Well, because the amendments that we're proposing require that dwellings on the first floor be approved pursuant to the special permit process of planning and zoning, which is a more rigorous process than business site plan, and it has additional standards.
Are you going to need a filling and grading permit?
Potentially, yes.
Okay. Are there any other special permits that you're gonna have to ask?
That's not a special permit, that's a separate
Are
application.
there other separate application permits that you're gonna have to?
I recounted them for you. We need a business site plan approval, which is the lowest standard of review. We need a special permit, because the regulations were suggesting to allow dwellings on the first floor and certain other changes to the regulations. I can't recall them off the top. It's the parking setbacks and some other things to permit this to proceed. Those are going to be proposed to be by special permit approval of the commission. And then we need probably a land filling and regrading permit, which is akin to a special permit, but not. It's a separate section of the regulations. And then we need the amendments that we are seeking.
Okay.
That's off the top of my head.
Okay. I think I got two questions to wrap up. The big question I have is, looking at this map, we noticed that the easterly portion of Building A and Building B are very close to the intermittent watercourse. Would the applicant consider a prudent feasible alternative to move the buildings away from the watercourse?
We can't do that. We'd have to shrink them to do that.
Okay.
We have no room in the back and are asking for, I think, a dispensation about rear yard setback in order to build what we have here. And we were advised that it's likely that that might be met with a receptive audience at P&Z. And to shrink this would mean reducing the size of the units. You can always do that, in every application, you can do that. You can shrink it down, but the financial viability, we think, is really tough here.
Yeah, I would
And-
agree.
To do that then reduces the financial viability, and it may become infeasible at that point.
I look at the site plan and I notice on the footprint of the building, as you go along to all the the outside and the inside reveals of the footing, there's numbers 1 through 18 on building B. Are those locations of sump pumps?
No, those are, because there's no slab on grade,
Yeah.
no pumping. Those are actually spots where we calculate our average grade
Okay.
to determine height.
We have no sump pumps, we have no basement, we have no crawl space.
No, I wouldn't,
Yeah.
it's at the same elevation
Yeah.
as the intermittent water course, water is just gonna run right across. Okay, on to the planting plan. Matt, I'm gonna have to use my trusty phone to magnify here.
You want me to move this closer?
No, you keep it there and then everybody can see it. No. Okay, so, first question is your drawings of trees, we'll start on the northerly border, right? Okay. We can do the, your laser pointer on, you have one QP?
Pinot.
That's a pin oak. With a big canopy, that's a pin oak?
Yeah, so the QP,
That's-
if you come down to the legend, it has the key down here, and it says the QP, it's got the scientific name, the
Okay.
common name, and then the size.
Okay, all right. Now, if you go to the, southerly border, yep,
These
right
are-
where the grouping of those trees
Those
are.
are existing.
Okay, so you have a 36-inch pine, a 19-inch maple, and a 10-inch maple, right?
Existing.
Yeah, yeah, okay, all right. And if I look at your planting chart, so you're proposing to plant 4 pin oaks?
Yes.
Okay. And you're saying that the caliper of the tree is 2.5, let's call 3 inches. Let's, 2.5, you say 2.5, you got real specific, 2.5 to 3 inches.
So that's the way they're
With your fingers, what's a 3-inch caliper?
just like that.
Okay,
6
All right.
inches off the ground, a little
Okay.
smaller.
all right, watch me.
That's
I got a
4.
question. Ready? Are you ready? This is a magic trick. Okay. This is a 3-inch caliper tree, and on your northerly border, look how big the canopy is.
So what I try to do is,
Wait.
no, wait.
Wait,
Okay.
no, I'm gonna finish, and then you can correct me. You got that big canopy of that tree, okay, right there. And then you go back over to an established tree that has a diameter of 36 inches. I don't think I can make 36 inches in a circle. All right, go ahead, explain that for me.
So what I try to do is the sizes of the symbols, they're not the sizes they go in at, showing, and they're not the sizes when they're mature. So they're the size, maybe 5-8 years down the line. So this tree right here, 20 feet across diameter. When it gets big, mature, 40 feet, 50 feet.
So in eight years, you're saying that canopy is gonna be 20 feet across?
Yeah, more, yeah, probably, yeah.
And then how old would you say a 36-inch? You're saying that the canopy isn't to
These are
scale
just-
on that tree?
No, these are, when you get to the survey, those tree symbols are tiny. They're, like the size of a dime.
Okay,
So I just enlarge them just graphically.
Okay.
Again, these are just graphic symbols.
okay, so, I got 2 follow-up questions on the planting plan. All right, so, where you're planting these trees, they're on the bank of their intermittent water course, really, all over the property, right? They're
Yeah,
not,
well, they're set back just a little bit.
yeah, but it's tight, let's
Yeah,
call it what it
but they're
is.
set back.
How far are they set back?
Probably 3 feet.
Okay,
They're set back.
all right, okay, they're set back. Of all the species of plants that you have to plant, is the only Can you just tell me which are the deciduous trees on your list? And tell me the
So
total.
so the plant list, I group shade trees up at the beginning. So that's the oak. This is how I always do it. After the shade trees, I have the deciduous understory trees, and that's the shed. And then I go into the evergreens, which are the arborvitae and the holly. So they're grouped that way. So again, the first groupings are the deciduous shade trees, then there's the deciduous understory trees, then the evergreen trees, then the shrubs. Then we get down to perennials at the bottom, and if you have vines, I usually put them last.
So you have four thujas. So
Yeah, so
some like, I don't know what dragon spires, but they're not green giants.
They're skinny. No, yeah,
They're
this is narrow grown.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
And you have ilex. Is that kind of like a shrub?
The holly, no, that holly will grow probably 40 feet or so.
All right,
Kind
that's
of narrow grown. Those are back here on this side.
So you have on
It
the,
could be a shrub too, but.
Okay. So 10, 14. So you're planting approximately 14 what would grow to be large trees. It's separating from being an ornamental tree.
Yeah, I wouldn't probably call the arborvitae, a large tree.
That's an ornamental.
Yeah, but it's for screening purposes, so it's narrow grown.
And where are those on the map?
I knew you were gonna ask, let's see. So there's one here, and there's one here, and there's one here, and there's one here. So those are more ornamental, upright, skinny, and a framed entrance.
Okay. All right, that's enough questions out of me tonight. Thank you, Matt.
You're welcome.
I had a question on the easement that's bisecting the combined properties. I didn't see any description as to what that easement was or who it was in favor of.
I don't know. I'm happy to report back. I believe it was an easement that may have been connected to the Kings Highway tennis property at some point, but beyond that, I don't know.
So Kings Highway has this easement that's.
I don't know.
I understand, I'm just
I'm
follow the
conjecturing,
logic. Kings Highway Tennis Court has an easement that's supplying the gas line. This is coming from the other direction, we don't know the purpose. But an easement typically, theoretically anyway, at least this seems to be how I remember it, there's no limit on the depth. It goes from the center of the earth to the earth crust, typically. It doesn't have a depth typically. So my question is, if your concrete galleries are right there in that easement, aren't you gonna contravene the easement?
You know, it depends on what the easement is for, and typically easements are for access, egress, installation of utilities, things like that. And I will check the easement and I'll report back.
Okay, and how that might impinge upon the concrete galleries? If at all?
I have a fairly high degree of confidence that this has no impact on this development. It's a good question.
Okay, thank you.
You sound like you have another question.
I do. But I'm gonna hold off at this moment. There might be members of the public at some point.
I'm gonna ask one short, simple question. And I think you've already answered it, Attorney Gleason, but with respect, I was struck, I've been to the site multiple times, struck by the plans on how close we are to that intermittent water course.
Yes.
Particularly in Building B, but certainly on the, I guess that's the east side of Building A. Was there an effort made to look for an alternative to put the same number of units, same square footage, but perhaps across, because I think this site, to me, quickly appears to be about twice as long as it is wide. And could you just build the same buildings, orient them up by the tennis court, park the same way and get farther away from the watercourse.
I know that Dan Conlon, our architect, has looked at this, and he is confident that this is the most efficient use of space that he could create that complies with the regulations and puts us in a position to have a viable, a potentially financially viable project. It was pretty clear that the planning and zoning was not going to give us greater encroachment into the rear yard, because that would be the best way to do that. Now, we could try and bounce back and forth between you guys and P&Z for, you know, a couple of years, but that's not gonna work in terms of this project.
Nor are we trying to impose
Yeah,
anything
and-
like
and-
that
and I-
on you and your developer. My question was more about achieve the same, look at an alternate, you know our commission and
Right.
and
And-
views we've taken for years.
I think we're gonna have to.
Are there alternatives?
I'm gonna have to bring Dan to the continuation of this hearing, because I assume we will be continuing it in light of the questions you've had. And he can talk about what he looked at and confirm again that what we were advised by P&Z, which is, I mean,
Is
we really wanted to go up and do more. And without that, then we have to look at what is financially viable here.
Yeah, absolutely.
And while the proximity to the wetland, the water course, I can understand your concern because it's quite close. But the nature of what we're doing is such that it can be done within those setbacks, within 5.7 feet. We can dig down 42 inches and create footings for that building without impacting that water course. And that's what Andy's report concludes. It's very clear in his report. But I'll ask Dan about alternatives. Any alternative that involves taking this project and sliding it or shrinking it is just gonna,
Not gonna work.
I just don't think that's gonna work, but I'd like you to hear that from Dan as well.
Thank you for studying
Okay.
it. That's all I ask.
I have some questions, and then I think you'll need to also go to Joe Gaines is here
Okay.
on behalf of this town,
Thanks.
and there are other interested parties. But I had some questions that hopefully is gonna clarify some of this. The first being, maybe Matt is the person to answer it if he can. We had an arborist's report. Now, and you claim that only 5 trees of size, as depicted on the plan, are going to be lost. There are some number of trees that are on other properties with a very large canopy that's depicted. Is there a certain degree of confidence that by constructing on this site, that those trees are not gonna be adversely impacted? So you know, for instance, a very limited report does not do an assessment or come up with recommendations to ensure there's no impact. So, for instance, I've seen in past projects, they rate the tree, and we all know what the trees are important in terms of, as you said, shading, temperature, water quality, and all the things, good things that you usually do, look at. But I didn't see any recommendations for, okay, we're gonna be excavating under that canopy. Is it gonna impact the tree? Is there a way to get around it by doing it's like select pruning, root pruning, done by an arborist as opposed to just excavating with the backhoe? Are there measures that are wells, walls? Are there, how are you gonna fence that off during the construction to ensure there's no impact, protect the root mass? Are you going to post-construction do aeration, deep root fertilization, all these things that, so there's trees that are on the site, and it seems like those are pretty well going to be lost as a result, and those are the trees of size, or maybe smaller. But there are also things that are around the perimeter that probably are in common with other properties. What are your thoughts on that?
So again, I think you're talking about mainly these trees, some over here too, I think. I think the arborist is probably gonna have to come back, or go back to the site and maybe come up with specific recommendations, you know, for, again, these trees that are mainly just to the south of the site. There is a low retaining wall there. But again, some of the things you said, the root pruning, you know, done by an arborist, not a backhoe, you know, digging into the roots. If they need to be fertilized, maybe the condition of them. You know, this tree's a maple, it's probably a Norway maple. A small, actually, that's a maple too. They're actually all maples, they're probably all Norway maples to begin with. So I think we're gonna have to come back with you with some specific recommendations for each of those trees.
Okay. You know, just as a practical statement, just as, you know, an extension of what Michael was talking about the driveway opening, you know, is it suitable for the uses that are being proposed? And you were gonna come back with, because it does make a difference if you have to expand it or not in terms of wetland impacts. But some of the other things, and again, it's further to what Mike was saying, just from a planning perspective, you know, these are not frontward facing buildings. You have transformers in the front, you have electric meters in the front, but I was a bit concerned. I know you have minimum requirements and you get a benefit by having it elevated because you reduce the parking requirement. How practical are these parking spaces, all these parking spaces? I see that, I can't believe that the turning radius into those spaces is doable. And does it make sense as part of your waiver process to reduce the amount of these parking spaces further? The other thing is like snow shelf. How do you plow the snow here? Another practical one, how do you get a trash truck in there to get to the trash? It's parked way up in the back corner of the property.
You know,
Where do you load and unload? And then also around the buildings itself, it's a very de minimis kind of space that will have to be maintained. Can you even fit a lawnmower around those spaces and still maintain, you know, your planting buffer to the wetland?
So again, the lawnmower, you could probably get it, you know, 26, 27 inches wide, pretty narrow to get around. I'm assuming that walkway is probably, you know, 3 feet, I would think, at the minimum. You know, wider over here by the dumpster areas. So again, I would
Like
think.
behind the walls. It's just, there can't be more than
Well, back,
a foot or two back.
yeah, back here, yeah, I would think there'd be no lawn above that wall. You know, on this side.
But more so, if you wanted to link it to the watercourse itself. You have a planting plan, you have a boulder demarcation feature. Are you able, is it reasonable to think that you can maintain those elements given the close proximity of the structures,
You know, back through here, you know, it might even be just a weed whacker that somebody goes in there, you know, once a month or so, just to, you know, if it's tight to get in here, if they can't get the lawnmower back there, but it looks like to me, they can come around, you know, around that way.
You know, I think that
Yeah,
probably takes
but,
another look, but like some of these parking spaces here. I mean, can you get into that last space? And the reason why I bring it up is because if there have to be modifications to
get them
the
back.
site plan,
Yeah.
These are elderly people driving in here now.
which it makes it,
Yeah, just so you know, the parking meets the regulations, which are designed to be effective.
for numbers.
No, also the design. The design is specified in the zoning regulations. How much backup area you have to have, how the size of them, and 90-degree parking is the easiest parking for people to use. It's come in, turn in, and you're there, and back out, and you have, provided you have sufficient backup. And I would add, this is all, that aspect of this is something that P&Z cares deeply about, and it falls within their jurisdiction. I think you're asking questions, and I'm not sure where we go with that in terms of how it affects
Well, I think-
EPC. I just,
I'm very interested to hear what Rick has to say, and I think the commission is welcome to ask any questions to evaluate a approval or a denial of an application.
Oh.
And I think it's germane to prudent and feasible, because if we have it 10 pounds going into a 5-pound bag, and we're asking for some retraction of the size and the scope, whether it's the parking lot or whether it's the structures, that alleviates us from impinging upon the 50-foot upland review area. So I think it's very relevant.
Well, you know that roughly 3/4, 2/3 of this site is within the either watercourse or upland review area. So anything that happens in this is going to require your approval. And I understand your concerns, but I think, okay.
Yeah, I can,
And, you know, just to Rick's point, I mean, the other question which I didn't bring, but we've seen culverts like this in front of residences. And ultimately, we've seen applications to cover the culverts because of safety issues. And I'm thinking, you got, 62-plus-year-old people driving around this corner, one of which has some limited visibility. Will there be further applications to cover the watercourse, and are there gonna be fences? So I'm thinking about practicalities, and I think the question Rick's asking is practicality here.
sure. In terms of the parking spaces, this seems like a parking space, but this last one here is not a parking space.
Well, the one with the curb stop is, but the other piece in the back there is not.
Right, so this is not, the dumpsters here get rolled out
And the truck has to drive in and pick up the dumpsters there.
and then back out.
And then what about this other parking space here?
So in this parking space, there's enough room here to maneuver and come out. We have a traffic consultant for the planning and zoning portion, and he ran truck turning movements, car movements in this parking lot. We can submit that as part of this
Yeah,
application.
if you want, we're happy to submit the traffic report, which documents the turning radiuses and access, et cetera, including emergency vehicles, if that's
I'm just trying to think
something
of
like
how
this
this is, going to potentially change, or, this, again, as Peter had mentioned about the safety, you're only a foot or two from the edge of watercourse, so there's no real way to maneuver around the buildings. And, so.
So maybe it's less lawn and more mulch.
Are you at exactly what you need for parking, or do you have excess parking?
we must have 18 spaces to do 12 units.
How many spaces do you have?
18.
Because the question was, could you put the buildings closer in the middle to have more buffer around?
No, the parking has to be X feet, I think it's 18 feet.
No, you don't have,
Yeah.
you've shoehorned everything in, you
Yeah,
have no room to
there's
move.
no room.
Yeah, it's a total new look, I think. It's not like shifting things, or, it's not really shifting things, it's either shrinking things that we talked about, right, and not being feasible, or, it's a design that we went down that path of planning and zoning that didn't like. So
I know
it's
it's
like-
important just to point out though, we've talked a lot about planning and zoning, it's like they're, absorbing some of the concerns about. from
Right,
the
no, I
EPD.
get it.
We're,
Yeah, we're pushing and pulling.
They're forcing us
Pushing
to
and
be,
pulling.
they're forcing us to push closer to the wetland, the watercourse, which we would prefer not to do.
Right, and I think,
Right.
I think you have to look at, your first step here is the inland wetlands, Environmental Protection Commission, what their charge is and what the protection will be.
Right, and Mr. Gleason, you keep making this point, which I'm gonna point out, is you keep saying the economical viability of the project is the primer for the reason why the buildings are so close to the watercourse, which is why there's so limited space around the buildings, where we're coming up with planting plan questions and maintenance questions all within the upland review area. You might be able to answer the question for yourself, whether it's viable to build these buildings.
I think it's a very tight site, there's no doubt about it, it's a very tight site. What's your thoughts on like logistics and phasing, how do you build this?
Sean, you want?
One building at a time. And I also think that if you guys want to.
Sean, you need to come up here.
Yeah.
Please come up and identify yourself for the record. Thank you. Trying to be like Eric.
Hello, my name's Sean Shea. I'm the builder, been building in this town for 30-something years. I would love for you guys to say, no, don't do this project. We want you to approve something in the middle, like you approved where there's 18 units at, where Maslin, at Sedgwick. Because actually, I can get more units there, but I don't want to go through what Maslin did of a 2-year thing with lawyers and architects and everything else. I'm trying to do the easy, to try to keep everybody happy, so 12 units was the minimal, okay? Under the 1030 rule with the Connecticut State affordable thing, I could actually get 24 units and go all up. So if you want to approve that, I'll make more money. But I'm trying to get this approved, the town of, what's his name, the head of planning and zoning, we don't want any more buildings on stilts. Don't want any more buildings on stilts. What do? So the architect came up with this plan, and that's what happened. So it's a simple, easy thing. Yeah, it's tight, but did you see what's there now? The pavement pretty much goes to the border. Your question on the trees that grow, we want the height, okay? So we're gonna prune all the way up, keep those trees, as many as we can, to keep the height, to keep that ugly green building that's a big tennis court behind there. There's the Fuji place that's pretty much abandoned. There's 95. There's a shithole next to it. I'm trying to do the right thing here, but I don't want to go through, expenses that in the end is going to get me to force a 1030G thing down,
What's
the town's throat.
What's a 1040G?
I think it's
830.
830G, sorry.
830, that's the
Affordable
affordable
housing.
housing statute.
So the architect looked at it and said, look, we put the parking underneath, we can get 24 units in here and go up, and that'll be that. But P&Z, like I said, they don't want anything on stilts anymore. So this is what we came up with. It's actually a nice, attractive plan. I think, with what Matt designed, and he designed 72 culverts, Coltex underneath, So I could do anything,
Ton of infrastructure.
or I could do nothing and just, rent them out, renovate whatever I have. Still gonna have the paving going all the way to the edge of the property, and the runoff is still gonna go into the culvert or the watercourse. I think one thing we could do to minimize the impact with the watercourse is to muck, I hate to say it, but take out some of that sediment that's in there. Because if you look at the 6-foot perimeter round of the culvert that's existing, half of it's filled with sediment. So after that 1,000-year storm that came through, it didn't take much to block that. It really did. I took a potato hook and it just cleared out this stuff. So I think what we should do is clean out the whole thing, because it hasn't been cleaned out. Clean up, muck out the rest of it. It'll lessen the impact of what goes down there. And with the plan, with the rocks and everything else, weed whackers, more trees, whatever, we'll do whatever. But I just don't want to go 2 years like Maslin did. But if what you want is what Maslin did, I'll do it. 18 units, I'll take it, instead of 12. You tell me. Thank you.
So he's gonna build one building at a time.
But how do you go build building
Yeah.
A and then.
You start the foundation typically, right? You wanna get into the ground so you can start framing. So you come in and you do one building, I don't know which one in particular, but you do one building.
Because you'll be generating material,
Right.
and then how do you manage the material and build the units?
So
And
yeah,
then
there's,
the drainage
obviously you
would
do
be
the demo.
absolutely last?
You do the demo, you put in all your ENS, you do the demo. You start with one building, this is all your staging, right? Once this is up, then you can start this one. Any material for the second building is probably coming right off site at that point. There's still some staging area here, but then you have contractor parking and all that going on. So any material that's coming out for the excavation of this is probably getting directly hauled off. When you're building your foundations, framing, then you're doing your utilities at a dry time, putting in your drainage infrastructure, and away you go.
Did you put, I didn't see the new plan yet, but you have, because you were being responsive to Joe and my comments, is there phasing and logistics on the plan?
I think we have. Yeah, sequence. Right here, on C1, sequence of operations. See that?
Well, it just says begin building construction, I didn't mean, as opposed to more definition.
Yeah. Right, we
So
can,
probably greater definition.
we can expand on that. Building A, then building B.
And, you know, we all talk about alternatives, and it doesn't just relate to buildings and so forth, I just worked on a pretty expansive project over on Thorndale. And, did you look at, I mean, aside from the big picture items, the buildings, the parking, et cetera, did you look at like different surface treatments, you know, to reduce the total amount of impervious, because the numbers are big, you know, well, they're still being determined, but the numbers seem pretty big. Did you look at alternative surface treatments to reduce the amount of impervious, or is it not appropriate given the site constraints and conditions that you have there?
We did it, we can. I'm not a big fan of porous asphalt, the maintenance thing. Not a big fan of it in the Northeast. I know they love it down in Greenwich. We use it often there, but we typically do those in parking stalls, so we can look at that option. This needs to be some type of hardscape for ADA. I think getting out of the buildings, right? And there's very minimal patios. I mean, we could probably look at those 4 little patios and do some type of pervious material for those. But it's really the parking in the building that's gobbling up most of that impervious surface.
And in you added, I see today, oil and grits, is that an oil and grit separator?
Yeah, there's 2 of them.
Okay. Do the catch basins have deep sumps and outlet controls?
If not, I'm sure you'll make it a condition.
So you should get some separation in the
we
catch
actually have-
basins?
Yeah, we actually have 4-foot stumps.
Do you have 4-foot sumps?
Yes.
And then do you have,
That gets you about 10% TSS removal.
and do you have it in there, like an elbow?
Typically, yeah. Sure.
I don't see it in the precast catch basin.
No, we'll add an elbow.
Um,
Thought that was standard in our note there. But we'll add the elbow
And
on the outlet pipe.
you said before, you looked at the watercourse in the culvert and its ability to convey flows. I didn't catch the to what standard, or to what did they convey flows? I mean, the full 50-year, or is it
No, I think it was the 10-year.
the 10-year?
Yes.
Okay.
That's typically what,
Is
for
that-
this type
Is
of
that typical of the
culvert
10-year?
crossing, yeah. 1,500 is for like a bridge on 95,
Yeah.
right?
And then most of these things are 10 or 25.
I think it's 10, but I'll double check it.
Okay.
I don't know if it was for the 10 or 25, but I'll double check what we did.
So that's where the drainage structure, I don't remember that
Yeah.
myself. The watercourse crossing, so there's some additional detailing that needs to be done for your water handling plan.
We had,
And did you add that? Do we know, so you're gonna use sandbags, I mean, before you were pumping water back into your excavation,
Yes,
the
we had-
original plan.
yeah,
But, so you're going to sandbag
both ends.
the both ends, pump to the outside. Do you have, does the sandbags have to be brought to a certain elevation? Do you have to use a certain size pipe to minimize disturbance?
So
I'm sure you're gonna rely mostly on doing this in August where it's deadpan.
Right, so, yeah, Mr. Canis brought that up also. My response basically was, that's exactly the response, right? We're gonna do this when there's no flow. We don't anticipate much or any pumping needing to be required in order to go through this and do this. There was reference made to the Connecticut DOT manual. The DOT manual is really for like a 3-month plus larger type projects, right? Where maybe this is access to development, like let's say this was currently habited, and this is critical in terms of people getting in and out of the site. This site will be vacant, it'll be all demoed, it'll be a construction site, so there's no need for some type of emergency access coming in and out of the site or any impacts to that culvert. And we don't anticipate much pumping need to happen to get these
But you
utilities.
have the plan, but is there?
But there's a
so
plan
you-
in case, for sure.
Right, so you'll be doing additional details for Mr., the engineering third party, how high you can put the sandbags to, freaking, 1-inch pump, not a 3-inch pump, certainly.
Right.
But it's really gonna be nothing more than to
And
get
that's
this
very
dry.
minimal. Yeah, you're probably building these, I think, Matt, you said the channel's like 18 inches deep at this
I think so.
spot. I mean, in terms of the lower banks, we're not going much higher than that. I mean, no more than 3 feet high for sure on sandbags.
Okay. You've done a lot of work on the plans since we've initiated, but I think the important things, we're raising those issues, and the big thing is that this alternative, what alternatives have you looked at, and what's possible, and of course, we want to make as lucrative a deal as we can for the project.
For everybody, yeah.
For sure. So,
I think it would be beneficial with the architect here at the next hearing to kind of talk through some of those alternative building designs.
Can we also ask that maybe you stake the property line along the north side so we can, so there's some clarity there when you're on the site? Yeah.
Sure.
And also the front of that, both buildings, so we can visually see how close they are to the,
east side.
to the watercourse.
Yeah, stake the corners of building A and B, that's a good
Yeah.
idea.
That would be
The 2 front corners?
Yep.
I'd say the rear corner of, the corners that are exposed to the intercourse.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This corner and this corner?
No, I would say,
This corner,
There,
there you go.
yep,
And this one?
correct, and then keep
and
going.
then keep going.
And this one?
Correct.
And then
This
the-
one?
Yep,
You
And
got
this
it.
one?
yep,
Yep, thanks.
So basically along the whole.
Mhm.
And this whole line?
Yeah, because it's confusing on the site.
Yeah.
We can guess, and there was some questions tonight that wasn't as clear.
Got it.
I assume you'll need that for planning and zoning anyway, they would like to have their property line staked.
Want to hear from Joe?
Good evening. For the record, my name is Joseph Canis. I'm a licensed professional engineer in the state of Connecticut. Principal engineer with Ty and Bond. We're retained for the purposes of the stormwater management and the erosion control review of the application. So I did issue a letter dated September 5th, 2024. As you heard in tonight's testimony, Mrs. Sublitis has already responded to that. They issued a response today. Unfortunately, I really haven't had a chance to really get into a detailed review of the response, but I'll certainly have that for next time around. So in terms of stormwater management, they did follow the fresh meadow approach, so they do comply with that piece of the regulation. I had some concerns in my September 5th memo about the capacity of that Coltech system, which they've since expanded, so it sounds like they're on the right track with that. And the nice thing about infiltrating on site is that it does a few things, right? It reduces volume, reduces peak discharge, and also reduces thermal pollution because you're putting it back into the ground. So from that aspect, that's certainly an improvement over existing conditions where right now it just runs in untreated. The other thing I did like in tonight's testimony is that the catch basins, they do have the 4-foot sumps. That's above and beyond the town's standard requirements. So that was good to see. There is still, in terms of the water handling, I understand where the applicant is coming from about using the DOT manual. These crossings can probably be done in 2 or 3 days max, which is obviously something the DOT can't seem to do on its projects, right? That doesn't exist in DOT world, so maybe there's some other criteria that we could look at. Maybe we could look at like the average daily flow or something like that, just as a backup. But I agree, the appropriate time of year to do it would be in the summer, right, when you don't have to manage the flows. One of the concerns I did have, it was actually my first question in my comments, is about the condition of that culvert. I understand, the applicant has done some calculations to verify the size of the culvert crossing, and 10 to 25 years is about the size that you would need for a driveway crossing. My concern overall, though, would be the condition of that culvert, just to make sure that it could handle, future traffic. The last thing you want to do is, build this and then have to come back and replace the culvert, right? So you just want to make sure you take a look at that. That'd be my recommendation there. But that's just a quick overview of, from what I've heard tonight, where I think it's going, what my, principal concerns are. One of the things I also wanted to point out, and this just happened to pop in my head also, when Commissioner Irvin was asking if that, one of the building, I think it's Building B, the one to the north, could be lifted up, made higher. One of the main restrictions here, though, is the elevation of Old Kings Highway North, right? Because that's at a fixed elevation, you're not gonna change that. And then because you have the driveway approach, right? You can't come steep right to the roadway gutter line, right? You have to have like a fairly level landing area. So it's, it's about 2% or something like that. So by the time you get to the other side of the watercourse, right, you're not gonna be able to lift that up all that much. And because the way the parking is arranged, the maximum slope you can have on parking, and it depends, where your accessible parking is. I don't quite remember if it's like on the watercourse side or if it's the far side.
So we go 5%
Right.
to our handicap parking, then
Okay.
2%,
Right.
and then, so yeah, we're maxed
Right,
out.
yeah, so 5% is the maximum slope you can have on a parking spot, across a parking spot if it's, a standard parking spot. Because you go any steeper, you open your car door, it's gonna
Yeah.
slam into the car next to you. So I do agree that, based on the current configuration, you really can't raise that Building B up anymore. So that's just a quick overview. Like I said, I have to go into a more detailed review of the plans that were submitted in response to my comments. Just be happy to answer any questions. I heard some of the commission's concerns tonight, and I'll also be looking out for those in my follow-up review.
Thank you, Joe.
Okay, thank you.
Do we have any members of the public who would like to take advantage of this time to comment on the public hearing? If so, please come up and identify yourself and thank you.
Hello everyone, I'm Susie, I'm the next door neighbor.
If you could give your name and address for the record.
Oh, yes, so Susie Huang, 100 Old Kings Highway North, so right next door. So first of all, I'm very happy to see this development, cause there's two houses have been there, now traded for long. So I just have a quick question regarding the water, the river. So my house was flooded twice in the last 3 years, in the two big storms, twice. As Catherine, as you, sorry, I didn't catch your name, but as you noticed, the river got very, very narrow, always come to my house. And the flooding is not really, I wouldn't say it's like 100%, because the debris, we clean it pretty often and we cut the trees and everything. It's due to the fact the water got very narrow. And so my question, is it says the existing grades on the side will be raised about 1 feet. And then you also mentioned that the way you treat it is gonna be discharge the water to the bank. So I'm very concerned about flooding and how that can be treated. And the flooding, really when the water overflows, not only, reach my house, also reach Old Kings Highway. So the whole highway at the corner is all flooded. And my car couldn't even pass that highway at that time, 2 storms, big storms. So it's pretty intense. So that's my first question. My second question is about safety that some of you mentioned. Because you're renting this or you're selling this to elder people, there's no walkway around the river, all next to the Old Kings Highway. So my kids, when they walk, I was very worried because there's no walkway, there's no, like any, like kind of, safety measured along the highway or the water. So, if you're renting this to elder people, I'm even more concerned about my liability and your liability too. About those people, navigating through those sites and to Trader Joe or to Old Kings Highway. And if they cannot drive, they walk, how can we keep them safe? So that's my main two questions. That's it, thank you.
Thank you for coming forward. Is there anyone else who would like to come up and comment on EPC 20-2024? As Eric likes to say, going once, going twice. I guess, Rick, I think that's our only comment from a member of the public.
So if we're gonna continue this, what date?
Rick, would that be our October hearing?
As long as there's a room available, it would be to the next available EPC hearing date.
Okay.
And it's October 9th.
I don't need to have that in here. I think it's October 9, Attorney Gleason.
Great,
So
thank you.
I think you should vote to continue, and then you're gonna be requesting additional information that we'll do our best to try to summarize.
Excellent.
Summarize.
So, motion to continue.
Who would like
I
to make a
would,
motion
like,
there, Peter?
to make a motion to continue this public hearing 20-2024 at our next scheduled meeting on Wednesday, October 9th.
Thank you. We have a second.
I'll second
Bill Wright. Peter, Rick is seconding that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you all. Okay. Yeah, good idea. We're going to take a 5-minute break. All right, thank you for that short break. We're now going to continue on our agenda for this meeting on new business, and the first item on our agenda for new business is EPC number 22-2024 with respect to 25 Old Kings Highway North. Spending a lot of time on Old Kings Highway North tonight. Regency Centers LP. Maintenance dredge portions of the Goodwives River. The property, which currently supports Old Kings Market, formerly known as the Goodwives Shopping Center, lies along the east side of Old Kings Highway North, across the street from Sedgwick Avenue, and is identified as map 71, lot 19, zone DC, and is plus or minus 9.49 acres.
Mr. Chairman, the application has made its way to the agenda this evening solely for the purpose to start the statutory time clock and to allow the commission members to determine if a public hearing is warranted for the application. This application is to maintenance dredge a portion of the river as it goes through the Goodwives Shopping Center to remove some accumulated sediment and debris and landscape debris. Staff has visited the site. We'll be generating a list of information necessary to move forward the application. So the charge is start the statutory time clock, determine if a public hearing is necessary, and if you have any preliminary comments as we move forward.
Thank you, Rick. Sir,
Is it my turn?
welcome. Please identify yourself.
Good evening. My name is Andrew Albrecht, and I represent Regency Centers, the new owners of Goodwives Shopping Center, or formerly known as Goodwives Shopping Center. I'm strictly here tonight. I know that I was actually told in the email that attendance wasn't actually required, but I wanted to make sure to stress the importance of this work, and be available for any questions that you might have prior to proceeding with your discussion or about this application.
Thank you. Do any of our commissioners from the preliminary information have any questions that they
course.
wanna? I know you're gonna
Well,
like this
yeah.
project,
I
because it's
suspect-
helping
You wanna go first?
water flow.
I'm just curious, it's a minimal amount of cubic yards you're gonna pull out of there. I'm kinda curious why you're even bothering.
Two reasons really: to reestablish the actual stream bed width, the bed elevation and the banks, and then reopen a portion of the culvert at our entrance on the property. When
You know, if you've got to fill up again.
for lack of a better description, the shopping center side of that stream bed is about maybe 2/3 to half of the way plugged with sediment and debris from previous storms. And so the intent would be to really just reestablish actually the square foot opening, you know, of the culverts themselves. We're not trying, nor would it really benefit anybody or the situation to enlarge the stream, because when that floods, it doesn't matter how wide or deep that stream is, it's flooding the roundabout and coming over a bridge. So-
And the other question is up at the other bridge, you actually have more sediment in that one than you do this.
Yes, on the inside curve of that bank, there's a massive sandbar that has formed, and that would be, you know, a part of what we would like to try and remove. Historically, over the years, when some of this has built up, and it was on about a 2 or 3 year cycle, it seemed, before these really bad storms. We would come in, have a contractor muck out with a long reach excavator, clear it up and haul it off, just point load right there, with no stockpile.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, you're welcome.
No, thank you, this is great.
Good.
It's nice to have the landowner maintain his property, this is wonderful.
Sadly, it seems like that's rare, but yeah, we want to get that cleared up and take care of it.
So is the plan, I noticed on the plan, it showed the area, real quick, it showed the area that was, you know, more of that bank that abutted
The
the
entry.
main entrance.
Correct.
Is the plan to do that end and then go back upstream and address where you said the sandbar is?
Yeah, because really the critical aspect is clearing those openings through the culvert and having the maximum, you know, open area allowable, you know, to get the water flowing through the culvert. The sandbar at we'll call it the upstream end by the other bridge, the King's Bridge, is really secondary. It's not inhibiting flow, it's not backing up volume. It would be our concern with that culvert really primarily to make sure that there's the biggest opening possible through there to continue the flow.
I guess what I'm saying is do you feel that that's just going to scour back to where you just cleaned out?
Inevitably, as in years past, those two locations will redeposit, and I would inevitably think I'd be back in front of you again saying, hey, it's been 3 years, can I go back and do this? Ultimately, I think the home run for us would be, and I don't know if it's possible, but to work out some way of either it's an annual maintenance, like a long-term permit or something that we can renew. I don't know the mechanics of that.
Yeah, I think, Rick, maybe we could approve a maintenance plan, I mean, how about that?
Yeah.
A
And I can-
landowner that wanted to actually write his own maintenance plan and follow it on a regular basis.
It would essentially be that plan that I've presented, or was presented in the packet. And, I mean, we could even just do it as a notification, either email or phone notification to engineering, I think, engineering department or wetlands?
No, it would be to Rick.
Okay, all right, yeah, to somebody to say, hey, we're scheduling or we're preparing to perform annual maintenance of the stream on this date.
How frequently do you think you would meet? If you said every 2-3 years, you think like on a 2-year cycle?
It's
Or on an ad hoc
It
basis?
is subjective to the weather we live in.
Okay.
The deposit you see there now is a direct result of actually the one flood about a year and a half ago that we incurred, and then the subsequent, heavy falls to date. The sandbar up at the upstream side is probably an accumulation of probably 5 years, honestly. But at the culvert at the entrance, that's recent. So if we're lucky and we don't have more of these storms, it might be 3 or 4 years that, before we would revisit it.
Okay.
I kind of doubt it, honestly.
I'll leave it to it.
I'm good.
No questions, thank you.
Carol?
So you answered one of my questions, was what, this is considered a maintenance dredging, and I was gonna ask when was the last time that this was done, and I think you said it was done about 3 years ago.
Approximately.
And my next question was gonna be, how often do you recommend, and you just said that it depends on the weather, so it's or the storm, so it's a little bit unpredictable.
Yeah.
But my other question is, there's a lot of plant material growing in the stream. Are you planning to remove any of that as well?
At the entrance driveway, where that culvert, the shopping center side of the culvert is partially plugged, quite frankly, that vegetation is growing on the debris and sandbar sediments that will be removed.
Okay.
Okay. When you look along up and down either bank,
Yeah.
going upstream from that point, we will only really try to chop back that vegetation, because that vegetation on that bank is actually sustaining the soils and preventing erosion.
Okay.
We found over the past that when that water goes back down, you'll have sediment deposits within the stream, but the bank, for the most part, has held solid because of all the grass.
Yeah, otherwise it would kind of erode.
Yeah, it just eat it away. We do have some erosion along there. It hasn't reached a point where it's substantive enough to take further actions at this time. But that would definitely be under a different scope, a different specific project dedicated to some other kind of restoration or.
And then what do you do with the material that you take out? I mean, are there any issues with contamination? I mean, is it considered like hazardous material or?
No,
Okay.
it's simply sediment, debris that's removed and taken out and taken either to the landfill or to some other off-site location.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think that's, yep, I think that's all I had for right now. Thank you.
I didn't want to ask a question because I just wanted to go through it as an acceptance, but we're limited into the dredging, because when I reviewed it previously over the past 3 and 4 years, in the bends, there is some pretty substantial erosion of the embankment.
Yes.
There are other issues where there's failure of the embankment. There are
Yes.
other issues there where there's no curb in significant rainfalls. It's caused the parking lot to collapse on the edges. We are not addressing any of that under this application, or is that gonna be a separate application in the future? Because I'm guessing that if those things are not remedied, the interval of which you're gonna be removing silt and debris is gonna be greater.
Potentially. However, when that critical mass or critical point occurs, it would be more the impact would really be more a collapse of that stone retaining the stone embankment on the shopping center side. If you notice, only the shopping center's side of that stream bed has the rock, kind of the rubble rock retaining wall. The Kings Highway side is just bare exposed, shoulder, whatever, embankment. One of the things that I've been working on with Regency is developing a capital project to reestablish the sheet draining and bleed off of that parking lot into that river. That historically, that's the way it was designed. Over the years of settling and asphalt, heaving and falling, the settling of the asphalt at the timber guardrail, that borders the parking, the drive lane, and the river, there have been created focal points of water that channel the water into the stream, and that's where you see the backwash and the erosion of a boulder that might pop out into the stream that you're noting. I can't, because of elevations and grades, I can't install a subsurface stormwater system in the parking lot. It needs to continue to sheet drain to the river like it's always done, but the project would be to reestablish a level, even, consistent edge and a gravel gutter, so that we have runoff that's kind of controlled. It fills the gravel gutter that's level and allows for an even sheet draining of water into the river to prevent the undermining and backwash of that rock.
We'll talk about that further, but I think there's,
Yeah.
opportunities in the parking lot where they should be doing water quality controls as
Right.
well. It's a big asphalt surface, and there should be collection and treatment before, but I suppose that's another project, the capital project.
That would be a very serious project undertaking.
Actually, it's not as big as you think. There's lots of federal and state money are absolutely going after that now to allow, give you guys a break, to treat that, both cooling it down, cleaning it up, and it's just a berm system. It's nothing fancy, and it just catches it before it goes.
Well, are you talking about?
That's another subject. We're late, we should probably.
Yeah. right.
But you're not, if you're not talking about a oil and grit separator, which has
No,
a
no.
tremendous depth that I can't
We're
make
not.
elevation
We're not talking
math work? Okay, all right, I'm open to that, yeah, absolutely.
Future.
Yeah.
Great.
Thank you very much. Rick?
Are we making any kind of motion?
No.
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 Thank you, sir.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, you're welcome, thank you for hearing me out. Any next steps or advice that I need to get from you guys?
Call him.
You're gonna get a letter of acceptance, and then we're gonna request additional information to move the project forward.
Okay. Wow.
Have a nice night.
Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Good luck.
Okay, next on our new business agenda is EPC number 23-2024 with respect to 32 Relihan Road, Francis Development LLC, to construct a new single-family dwelling, drive, drainage, utilities, and other related features proximate to wetlands and water courses. The property lies along the east side of Relihan Road, approximately 285 feet south of La Forge Road, and is identified as map 45, lot 87, zone R1/5, and it is plus or minus 0.2 acres.
Vice Chairman, the application, it's made its way to the agenda this evening, similarly to the last application, to start the statutory time clock in which a decision shall be rendered, to establish if you believe that a public hearing is warranted, to assess the merits of the application, and to provide any initial comments you may have based on your review of the plans or and your inspection. I've reviewed the site. I'll be generating a letter of information. We'll be generating, I believe that it's necessary to move the application forward, and I certainly welcome your comments as well.
Thank you, Rick. I happened to be over in that neighborhood today. I did a drive-by, and only a simple drive-by. I have no other questions from the materials you've circulated at this time. Carolyn?
Yes, I do have a couple questions. So there's mention made of the watercourse that's on the property, I don't know if it's east, west, north, or south, but on the Dubois property. But it looks to me like there's another watercourse that goes to the side, so it would be
North.
north, thank you. There's another watercourse that would go to the north of the property, so that would affect the setbacks, I believe. And it would increase the regulated area. Also, let's see, yes, there was mention made of treating and removing the the Japanese knotweed, I was wondering if we could get clarification, it's sensitive area, clarification on how that would be done. And just questioning if there's any tree removal. Again, I just have to say, I appreciate that there's a buffer, on the wetland side of the property. But, in an area like that, I would prefer to see true natives put in to increase the conservation value of the regulated area as opposed to cultivars. And I was just wondering if there's a sump pump, was there a sump pump in the current house? If so, how often does it run, and will there be a sump pump in the new structure? And that's all I have.
I don't have any questions or comments, but I'm inclined to make a motion for a public hearing.
Relihan is pretty swampy, I would imagine neighbors might wanna come out and ask questions about the application. I think that would probably be a prudent decision.
Before Joe, so gets a kind of a squishy backyards over there.
I think he's got a point. There's, everybody's always interested when there's more water around, so, okay.
So we need to make a motion?
Yes.
We,
If you wanna have a public hearing, it'd be a motion to have a public hearing, and state the reason why.
Yep, I'd like to make a motion on 23-2024 32 Relihan Road. Motion for a public hearing in the public interest to get comments from neighbors or other interested individuals.
thank you, Peter. Can we have a second on that? Second. Michael, Rick, seconded that motion, thank you.
All in favor?
All in favor? Moving on to old business on our agenda for EPC number 9, 2024, with respect to 25 Old Kings Highway North, UB Darien LLC, to construct to an electric charging station, including superchargers, charging posts, switch gear, transformer, and other related features in a special flood hazard area and proximate to wetlands and watercourses. The property, which currently supports either its Old Kings Market or the Goodwife Shopping Center, lies along the east side of the Old Kings Highway North, approximately 550 feet south of Brookside Road, and is identified as map 71, lot 19, zone DC, and it is plus or minus 9.49 acres.
Mr. Vice Chairman, the application has been requested to be withdrawn at this time in order to develop additional information and to perhaps seek variances to allow certain elements of the design to comply with zoning as well as the EPC requirements. No action is necessary.
Rick, I'm curious, UB Darien is Erstad Biddle, which
Yes.
was the former owners. Or do they still have an interest in this property, particularly given the new business application under Regency Centers LP? Is Erstad?
At the time, this is what the application came under.
Okay, all right.
Thank you, I had the same question, Peter. Let's move on in our old business agenda to EPC number 12-2024-15 Holly Lane, N. Pedley and M. Pedley, to install a new detached deck, patio, spa, barbecue, generator, and other related features in a special flood hazard area and within close proximity to wetlands and water courses. The property lies along the east side of Holly Lane, approximately 940 feet north of Middlesex Road, and is identified as map 9, lot 145, zone R1, and it is plus or minus 1.1218 acres.
Mr. Vice Chairman, this application has been vetted over the past several meetings with the EPC. It was considered at the June 5th and the August 7th meetings. Pertinent issues relating to drainage, water quality, resource impacts, the use of alternatives, flood compliance, etc., had been addressed. Upon the completion of testimony at the August 7th meeting, I was directed to develop a draft resolution for the commission's consideration. So you have that here this evening, not only a summary of the conditions and how pertinent matters have been addressed, but also recommended conditions of approval.
I know that you did draft a resolution because I read it, and I also found no edits at all, Rick, to forward to you. I probably should have sent you a note to that effect, but just making sure
Completely
you
by
know
mistake,
I did my homework. And so with that, I have no other observations.
Yeah, so at the last meeting, I asked the landscape architect about the property that was across the bridge, and there's a lot of debris, and I was told that that was the neighbor's property, not this property, but when.
I'm here, so I've been waiting 3
Oh.
hours.
Oh, hi!
Let's talk.
So, okay, sorry.
Could you please identify
My name's Ed
yourself, sir?
Fitzwilliam of Pro Landscaping.
So,
Sorry,
I don't
losing
know
my
if you
voice.
remember the question, but there's a lot of debris that's across from the bridge, and we normally would request that that be removed, but my understanding was that it was not the property did not belong to this homeowner, but it was the neighbor's property. So, but when I look at the maps, I see that it is part of this property.
So we would encompass everything that's in there,
Okay.
you know, the scope of work that's within their property. I believe we also discussed that, given permission, we would, go into the other areas to try to keep that as free as possible.
Mhm.
And part of the resolution also states that the ongoing maintenance, which we would put forth in the land trust, that we would take care of that, again, with permission from abutting neighbors, that specific area. And that would be an ongoing thing our client's prepared to do.
And the same with the sort of the perennial review of the invasives to make sure that those.
Most importantly, actually, not
Okay.
just the debris,
Right.
but keeping that, the invasives. I think that, and we discussed this the last meeting, what's really of utmost importance is just to keep that embankment as free and as open for water flow as we possibly can. Because that's what allows things to continue to move downstream. So that's where you don't get that, overflow, or you minimize that to whatever degree that you can. So we
Right.
discussed that with our client.
Okay.
They're fully prepared to put that into their permanent deed for the town.
Right, and then I just thought like under.
There should be no more discussion, no more testimony, you're only voting on the resolution.
Correct.
So,
Oh.
if there's something that you want to incorporate into the resolution, we should not be entertaining
Revisiting.
additional,
The
revisiting.
resolution has been drafted from our prior meeting.
And it does state that in there.
Oh, yeah.
Oh yeah, it's the maintenance program as part of that.
Are there anything that you want to change in the resolution to address your concerns?
Well, I mean, I don't know if the wording is in there specifically. I mean, just what I articulated about how, removal of debris and as part of.
It's in there somewhere, I don't remember
Okay.
exactly where.
Find it.
I think it's one of the conditions.
I think number 12 possibly.
12?
That's for long-term management that we typically apply, but in the,
So maybe 12 just needs a revision
And it
after the
could-
first sentence, apply to the property and to the adjoining property where practical and with permission.
Where permitted.
Yeah.
Is that?
I'd agree to
Well,
that.
I mean, I wasn't even asking about the adjoining property, it was just this property per se, because I misunderstood what
The boundaries,
boundaries,
correct.
yes.
Which is fine, because it just, and again, it only benefits our client, but some people are very clear about, that's mine, that's theirs,
Right.
you stay off.
Yes, they certainly are.
Within the text of the document, they have committed to removing accumulated brush and debris. If you wanna add another, to provide a clarifying condition, we can certainly do that. But they've already committed to doing it.
Then that's it.
Yeah.
Do we need language about the neighbors and permission and within reason? I thought it read okay, but I'm happy to.
I mean, what you can't do is
Embellish it.
you can't put a condition that affects somebody else's
I
property.
was just gonna
Right.
say that.
Right.
That we can't.
I think we should move forward with a vote to, approve this resolution as drafted. May I have a motion to approve the
Well,
resolution?
I wanna be
with
sure
respect-
Carol.
Oh, I'm done, yeah, no, that was
Okay.
my only thing,
All
yeah.
right, I'd like to make a motion to approve the resolution as presented for EPC 12-2024, 15 Holly Lane.
Thank you, Peter. Do we have a motion to second?
Everybody's saying. Should all second.
And all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate your time and
Thanks
effort.
for your
Thank you.
patience.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Rick, for all the back and forth about this one.
We have a couple more items for tonight's agenda. This is with respect to EPC 14-2024-10 Nickerson Lane. J. Vinci and L. Vinci to install a residential dock consisting of a fixed pier, ramp, and float in and along Holly Pond and other areas of resource. The property lies along the south side of Nickerson Lane, approximately 715 feet west of Nearwater Lane, and is identified as map 52, lot 8, zone R1, and it is plus or minus 0.989 acres.
Mr. Vice Chairman, just a brief summary of the application. So this is our discussion segment of this application. The applicant's proposing to install a small residential dock on the property. This property has been the subject of one or more EPC prior permit applications with the overall development. For those of you who've been on the board for the last 10 years or so, maybe you do recall. The property it sits on, it's direct waterfront property on Holly Pond, and it has coastal resources on it that include the coastal flood hazard area, tidal wetlands, shorelands, and estuarine embayment, which is the Holly Pond itself. And those coastal resources are defined in my agenda summary. There's also, just as a further review of those items, the part of the property is subject to flooding. It's in the coastal flood hazard area. Basically, the more turbulent waters, the V zone is along the water's edge. There's areas of ponded water that are more inland. Under the prior application, there was a soil scientist report, and those soils have been identified. Essentially, there is a band of tidal wetlands along the edge of Holly Pond. This project will not affect many of those resources. We've outlined in here that they've received their state permits for the placement of the dock. They have standard conditions within those state approvals concerning construction methodologies. Is outlets tend to access the proposed dock site from the developed upland areas. It's all going to be substantially handwork. They're driving a couple 2-inch galvanized pipes to hold the dock in place. And then they'll be adding the fixed pier and the ramp as well. The floating section will be on skids, so it doesn't sit on the substrate of Holly Pond itself. There'll be no grade change, no tree loss. Erosion controls will be utilized as necessary to protect resources and limit impacts on water quality. And within the text of the DEP permits, if you read through them carefully, they do have contingency elements having to do with fuel storage, material stockpiling, and flood contingency elements. We asked further, and we have received a certification from an engineer about the flood-proof nature, the ability to withstand certain levels of flooding, and about 750 square feet of the upland review area will be affected. We made sure that they incorporate into their development plans no lighting or utilities in response to the commission's mandate to eliminate manicured lawn, stabilize the soil, eliminate future intrusions by nuisance wildlife, and supplement the plantings that were applied in the original scheme, and also to stabilize the embankment. There's quite a bit of erosion along certain elements of the embankment. They have provided a planting plan that may need to be, in my opinion, modified, and there's a commitment on behalf of the applicant to do so, to come up with, although this is very expansive and very aggressive, the planting plan, some of the plantings may not be suitable for the gravelly elements of that embankment, where now they're talking about American beach grass, et cetera. So there's a commitment on our behalf to revisit the planting plan, subject to the commission's and staff's requirements. We'd also want to make sure that they're using a durable planting scheme that's deer resistant. It came up on the adjoining property that we reviewed about a year and a half ago. Is that at least some of these things, like the Carolina rose, may be deer food. And there's quite an aggressive deer population in that particular area.
It is deer resistant and rabbit resistant.
Carolina rose?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That nothing's deer proof, per se, but that they're both, that it's deer resistant.
There are certain, I've consulted with a landscape architect on that, and there's our roses that are more deer resistant. There's a Virginia rose as opposed to the Carolina rose.
Okay.
That seems to be it. Patrick's here, the CQ.
Yep, I'm Patrick Sher with Redness to Mead, project engineer, professional engineer license in the state of Connecticut. I don't really have anything else to add beyond what Rick did. He did a great job summarizing the project. I'd just like to highlight again that we've already gotten sign off from the state, they're deep, and the Army Corps of Engineers have already signed off on these permits, so they've done their review process.
Thank you.
We have a commissioner who's very focused on the protection of Holly Pond, that being Mr. Wright. Do we have any observations here, Bill?
I liked that Rick and you all worked on trying to shore up that area. It is all gravel. It's going to be tough to figure out how to grow stuff in there, but it is definitely an erosion spot, and the homeowner will probably like not having that disappear on them as well. So.
Yeah, and we're committed to working with Rick on coming up with the best plan possible.
I think it's wonderful. Thanks.
Thank you.
No further questions or comments from me?
No questions, no comments.
Just a comment that was pleased that the applicant was willing to do a planting plan, given that in the project narrative originally they said they were not planning to, so thank you.
Thank you, sir. I think we're all set.
So what we'll do is we'll craft a resolution for consideration at the next meeting.
Thank you, Rick.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Have a good night.
The next item on our agenda, we're working our way through it, is EPC number 19, 2024.
with respect to 32 Birch Road, K Tarrant, to construct an in-ground pool, patio, drainage, and other related features proximate to wetlands. The property lies along the east side of Birch Road, approximately 300 feet south of Point of Wood Road, and is identified as map 13, lot 34, zone R1, and is plus or minus 0.7753 acres.
Chair, Vice Chairman, I'll just provide a summary to get some things into the record here.
Thank you, sir.
So this property is currently developed, supports a single-family dwelling, patios, driveways, et cetera, currently undergoing certain renovations to the dwelling itself. The applicant's proposing to install an in-ground pool, patio space, terrace space, and other related features in the rear yard areas. Alexandra had made her way out there and provided a soils report and clarified that there are no inland wetlands on this particular property. However, as shown on the official mapping, that there are wetlands to the, I guess it's the north and the east. Therefore, the 50-foot upland review area extends onto the site and affects the property. The applicant has looked at and addressed the issues that were raised by the commission members and staff. They are, just in general, in order to place the pool, they have to relocate an existing pipe in order to provide the space necessary to support the pool. And there will be other drainage structures to mitigate impacts, et cetera. There are no direct wetland or watercourse encroachments proposed. About 3,049 square feet of the upland review area will be affected. The space is currently developed. It includes mostly lawn and landscaped areas and ornamental plantings. There's virtually very low grade change. Major project elements are pretty extensively set back from wetlands on the adjoining properties. Just a brief review of about 47 feet. Lesser features like grading extend closer, but again, not substantially within 5 feet of the wetlands, et cetera. And there's no trees of size. The size that we lost as a result of the construction. There was a drainage plan that was proposed, and again, the elements are to provide positive drainage around the pool and to relocate the existing pipe that's there, but also it's to accommodate, treat, and mitigate the impact of an expanded patios and terrace space. The engineer has confirmed the absence of impact in the storms ranging from 2 to 50 years, and the town's consulting engineer has endorsed not only the findings of the project engineer, but also the design. To assist in the preservation of water quality, they have an erosion control plan. They utilize an infiltration. Catch basins will have deep sumps. They have to do a water handling plan to kind of construct the pipe first. There's logistics plan of how they intend to do that. They're basically building the alternative drainage and then connecting it. So those are all listed on the plans. The only thing the staff would suggest is verification of the driveway catch basin, that it should have, and it may need to be replaced, it should have a full 2-foot sump and outlet controls in it. That's the only thing above and beyond.
And you've made a note of that.
I've made a note of that. It's the only thing that's above and beyond what's came from the town's consulting engineer. And Alexandra's also provided a basic planting plan at the request of the agency, and they included things like inkberry ridges or dogwood, and they're basically along the perimeters and the site's wetlands to provide not only screening but enhance the conservation values of the property. They'll also be screening out some of the structures and features that are being proposed. Applicant's been very responsive. They're mitigating some non-compliant locations for like pool equipment and so forth, so they move into more compliant conditions, and they're screened with landscaping. I'm available for questions. Alexandra's here, she's done a great job pointing to things.
So I think
Thank you
we
for
did
your
a
overview.
good job to walk us through the project. My name is Alexandra Mark, wetland soil scientist and landscape designer. With us tonight is Mark Ochman, and he does the engineering, but he's very sick today, so if you can leave him alone, limiting to questions, that would be great. Yes, so we are very confident that this is going to be a project which will have no impact to the wetlands. So usually when you do construction, you expect two types of potential impacts. There's a short-term impact, which is when you disturb the soil, and we're going to be removing the old pool and replacing it with a new pool. We're going to be, again, relocating the pipe for drainage, and we're going to be installing the drainage system and pool equipment. During this process, we're going to use proper erosion controls. Here's one wetland. This is actually a potential wetland, wasn't confirmed. But we have the proper erosion controls here, and here's the historic wetland offsite. We're also going to be protecting this one. This one is, in addition, protected by 2-foot wall, so this is actually higher than we are, so the water doesn't travel up the hill, so this wetland is safe. Also, we are going to have proper anti-tracking pad getting to the site and getting out, so there will be no siltation on the road, and we're going to have a stockpile area which is going to be also surrounded by a proper erosion control. The long-term impact, there's going to be none. Usually they are related to the increase of impervious surface. We are going to be increasing impervious surface, but this is going to be all mitigated with the stormwater management system. On the top of it, we have the planting plan, which is going to limit the area of the lawn and beef up the buffer for the potential wetlands offsite. And also we're going to have evergreen ilex glabra, which is going to provide beautiful hedge not only for wildlife but also screening the pool equipment. I'm here to answer any questions.
I had only one small question. The pipe you're relocating serves what?
So this is an old drainage system which runs through the neighborhood. So it's there, it was inherited, so we just, and it's kind of, unfortunately it crosses in the area of the proposed pool. So the pipe, you can see this is dash line.
Yes.
Currently is here, and we are relocating this outside of the pool. This actually runs throughout the neighborhood.
But what kind of pipe is it? What's the purpose of it?
So we are relocating because this pipe right
No, I
now is-
understand why you're relocating it. What is the pipe though? What is it conveying, and what, you know, what is it? I mean, the pipe's mentioned multiple times in these throughout the application, but it doesn't ever say what it is.
Mike, do you have any?
It's conveying stormwater, and I think there's a little small brook upstream that, so it's passing through there's an 8-inch pipe on the uphill side neighbor, and then on the downhill side is a 12-inch, so we had an 8-inch pipe on our property, and we're upgrading it to a 12-inch pipe to, you know, just like with all the storm events that we've been having, just in case.
Thank you.
And it continues into the next neighbor?
It continues downstream to the next neighbor.
And what size pipe do they have? I mean,
Downstream is a 12-inch, and upstream is an 8-inch. So the controlling factor is the uphill pipe. But just to be safe, and through the recommendation of tying
right,
bond.
wondering why it was increasing.
Because I saw there's 3 storm drains in the back there too.
Yeah, in the grass.
In the grass.
Yeah.
What's the story with those?
I-
There's one near the pool, there's
Yeah.
one off to the backside,
Yeah.
there's like 3 of them in there.
There's two 24-inch catch basins that tie into that, are part of that drain pipe.
But there's also one to the far right that's not in your drain line at all. And I'm curious what that one's.
I think that's just picking up some of the existing surface runoff.
And sending it
into the pipe. And then everything is actually tied into that pipe. So,
Those been marked on the plan,
The catch basins?
the storm drains?
You ought to have those on there, because it's.
So this is being English, do have all the calculations?
Yeah, the existing storm drains are marked on the plan.
Catch basins.
And a comment from Ty and Bond, they recommended that we replace those existing catch basins and put 2-foot sumps in them, because right now they're not, they're just
Okay.
yard drains with 5-inch sumps, something like that. So we put a note on our plans to replace those with
Okay.
24-inch sumps.
So the overflow pipe from the Caltex, where's that going?
That's getting tied into one of the store manhole, that's in line with that main line,
So that's,
piping.
that same line that's gonna go through the next neighbors on down, you're tying into that?
Correct,
And
yes.
it's got capacity, and where does that eventually come out? God only knows, okay, I'm not sure. I'm sorry, I took over somebody else's question. Jesus, I was getting punchy here. The only other question I had is, why are you putting all those, plants up on that other side when there's already a monster thick hedge there already?
Okay, so, there's, the purpose of it is to provide a little bit wider buffer to this wetland.
But there's, it's like thick as can be in there now.
So this is all arborvitae, which doesn't really have good value, any values
Okay.
for wildlife or much of a value
Alright.
to wildlife. So we're going to add a little bit, a few of the red twig dogwoods, which will provide
Oh, okay.
more fruits and food and
That's good.
shelter to.
I'm done. Anybody else?
Michael?
Mm-hmm.
I'm lost on the pipe.
I'm still back at the pipe.
No. Well,
Here,
I
no
trust
questions,
Ray.
no comments.
Trust, so my point is I trust staff to handle the application in accordance with the town guidelines.
Well, most
Carolyn?
likely the pipe goes to good wife's favor. No, you know. Potentially.
I was being serious.
Are you done?
Yes.
On the wall, on the deer fence, that's atop or adjacent to the stone wall, are there any plans to remove the English ivy that's growing there, or is that staying?
There are two actually fences, and I don't know whether or not both neighbors decided to put one, because I was.
So that may be the neighbors?
I was trying to actually go over because I wanted to access this wetland and I wanted to kind of figure out, what this is all about. And I was trying to get over those two fences. It was really difficult. So we don't really have access to this side, and the ivy is actually growing from the neighbor side.
Yeah, but it's growing into.
But we can
your
keep
area.
cutting as soon as it encroaches.
Okay, and you're only regrading not to exceed 1 to 2 feet, but how is that gonna change the flow of the runoff? How is it gonna go? Sorry, I know
everything-
you don't feel well, I'm
No,
sorry.
I'm fine. Everything's still gonna be directed to that lower catch basin down to the south corner there. So it's almost like a bowl running through there.
So on the map, it's southeast?
No,
Oh.
directly,
Oh.
so basically this whole path drains to this one catch basin, right here, this existing catch basin right here.
Okay,
So it's still gonna maintain, it's gonna come around and it's still gonna maintain, because this elevation over here is higher, so, and it pitches towards that one.
so it's
catch basin.
basically pitching it away from the regulated area?
Correct, yes.
Okay,
This is-
there's that, and then, just curiosity, is the new pool gonna be any deeper than the current pool? Is it gonna go any deeper? I think it's 8 feet, I don't know what the current,
I'm not sure on the depth of the current pool.
not that important, but just was curious. And then the pool equipment was north, I guess, of the shed area, that's being relocated over there. But you're still, keeping the other mechanicals there, right? I think there's,
These are old, we don't even know what they are, so. we don't
it's
have
a
to touch
propane
them.
tank
It's
and,
not part of the project.
generator.
Mhm.
And then just, because she's not here anymore, I have to speak up for our former commissioner about the operations and maintenance plan. Overall, I think it's really good. I really love that you have the log where you can check things and make comments and it gets signed and all of that. The only thing I would just recommend is that, the frequency and so forth, instead of just like suggesting that it be done, I think it needs to be stronger language. I think it needs to say shall instead of should. And I think, you know, it's at the end of the long report. I think, you know, the owner needs to be aware of its existence, you know. I mean, is it gonna be a separate document that is given to the owner?
Yeah, it is given to the owner.
Okay, yeah, but they know they have to do something with it, right?
Yes, they should, yeah, they should. I mean, you're gonna have a lot of catch basins, like you said, there's a lot of area
Yeah,
within there.
there's a lot that needs to be maintained, so,
And so
yeah.
they do need to be taken care of.
Okay, and then, right, the plantings, they're not really in the regulated area, they're not really doing anything to enhance that, but that's
Well,
fine.
that came the upland review area. We don't have wetland area on our
No,
property.
the upland review area,
Yeah,
yeah.
we're doing our best.
Okay, right, okay, that's really all I have.
Can I add two more and then I'll get out of here? Just as a little picking thing, in the narrative, you should mention that the pool is in the 50-foot review area. It's kind of, I think it's mentioned, it's not mentioned at all, like, you know, the pool's fine, blah, 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 but in the narrative, just write that in.
Yeah.
All right, minor. And the last one is the access point to get to the new pool, going through some magnificent oak trees. So you gotta protect those, putting that road in there. They're massive, they're beautiful.
Yeah.
And there's a little slide to get through there, I think we were aiming for. But you got really the roots and everything else on those things. That's all I got.
Thank you, Bill. Carolyn.
Draft a
Procedure,
resolution.
draft a resolution.
Next meeting? Okay.
Thank you, Rick. Thank you all. Thank you.
Thank you, thank you for
Thanks.
all the questions.
There are no minutes to approve, but we do have two agent approvals. The first deals with EPC number 15-2024 with 31 Buttonwood Lane, H. Farnham, to install a residential addition and related features proximate to wetlands and watercourses. Property lies along the north side of Buttonwood Lane, approximately 685 feet west of Brookside Road, and is identified as map 5, lot 6, zone R1, and it is plus or minus 1.1303 acres.
Vice Chairman, I crafted an agent approval for this application. If you recall, at last month's meeting, the applicant's doing improvements to this dwelling just along the front plane of the existing dwelling. It's an extension of the front wall sitting on piers and gravel underneath. It's really an expansion of seating area. It's actually just to level out the plane. Some concern, not quite concern, but clarifications were warranted. It's just to level out the front face of the building, and they're gonna have seating areas and storage areas that they're expanding into. They're also doing some work on the existing porch. The applicants provide an updated site plan. They secured soils information. It's important to note that this application the development of this parcel had been subject to a prior EPC permit many years ago, before any of us were around. It's not in the flood hazard area. The improvements, again, along the front plane, modest expansion, first floor, window seating storage, 80 square feet and 26 square feet of porch, expanded sonotubes. The only excavation is linked to those sonotubes and a limited foundation for the porch. They claim it's going to be accomplished by hand. Excess fill is going to be exported from site. No direct wetland or watercourse improvements. All activities confined to upland soil areas and previously developed space. No less than 30 feet and 85 feet to the intermittent watercourse that's there. No substantial grade changes, no tree loss. A total of 106 square feet of the upland review area. They have an erosion control plan. It's such a de minimis amount of new imperviousness, that there's unlikely that, given the size of the property, of an adverse impact on drainage or adjoining properties. They committed to cleaning the drainage, existing drainage structures under the driveway, cleaning them out, and to displace lawn, filter runoff, and improve the overall conservation values. They actually, given the, even the small, the minimal size of this project, small size of the project, they actually come up with a planting plan with some native shrubs to add to the front yard along the intermittent watercourse. And it seemed like a fair addition of 12 decent-sized conservation valued shrubs.
Thank you for that.
With an agent approval, if you have any questions, issues, concerns, you'd like me to change conditions or whatever, otherwise there's no requirement to vote on it.
I have no question. None.
No questions.
Thank you, Michael. EPC 16-2024 is with respect to 29 Bailey Avenue, J. Vecchiarelli Jr. to install an 8x12 shed and related features proximate to wetlands, watercourses, and open space areas. The property lies along the west side of Bailey Avenue, approximately 275 feet south of West Avenue, is identified as map 39, lot 61, zone R1/5, and is plus or minus 0.221 acres. It's another agent approval on your desk.
Yeah, determined to do this one as an agent approval as well. The development of the parcel had initially been before the EPC as the initial development project, as well as the subdivision that created the lot. The house was constructed. There are no wetlands on the property. The wetlands are on the abutting property, and it's an open space preserve that was established at the time of subdivision. There's also a water course, I believe it's a reach of Cummings Brook, an extension of Cummings Brooks that goes through this open space area. The applicant proposed to install a small shed to remove some of the stored office, I'm losing my mind.
It's late, it's late.
It's late.
Their furniture and children's toys, etc. They have committed to not installing any lawnmowers, fertilizers. Those are all stored within the house where there's more security on top of it. They have also they clarified the size, it's very small, 8x12. There's no excavation. It'll just be sitting on 4x4 deadmen, perhaps with some crushed stone under it. No tree loss, it's all lawn. There's still pretty extensive setbacks to the property boundary and in the open space. And like the prior applicant, this individual has committed to removing his composter, not to stick it in there.
I hope they keep it.
But they're gonna keep it, but they're gonna move it out of the open space.
I didn't know that it was a
Yeah,
composter.
it was that little gray thing.
Yeah.
It was a composter and they're gonna clean up, some of the debris that's accumulated back there, and they have a planting plan. So like the last one, they've come up with 12 plantings to enhance the conservation values and filter runoff, etc. One thing I did add, although it's not in the flood zone, this property had experienced flooding post Ida. And so I made a recommendation in here within the kind of that they, although you do not hold the same standard because they're not in the designated flood hazard zone, to stabilize it in place. So they come up with a little design to make sure it's secure with stakes or some other kind of.
The shed itself.
Yes.
To anchor it.
All right, so with that, I think it's a fair.
Good judgment, thank you, Rick.
Last thing.
The only other thing on our agenda before adjourning is the proposed regular meeting schedule for 2025.
So, as we do every September, because we have to have it in October 1st, it comes with the meeting schedule. It follows the tradition of the EPC meeting the first Wednesday of every month. There are exceptions, like January. We've adjusted it for holidays, and we've adjusted it for
July.
vacations. And so there's, so January, instead of having it on January 1st, unless you want to come here during the Rose Bowl, we have to move that to the second week. And then the July meeting is going to be adjusted as well to, again, most people seem to be away last year, at least with the 4th of July holiday. The only other thing is, and I know we ask every year, and I'll certainly live with whatever the decision is, there's always been talk of not having a meeting in August. Because of vacation schedules, etc., and the difficulty in getting membership to, but the other land use commissions do not meet in the month of August. But historically, Eric thought that because we meet the first week, that it's usually week 2, 3, and 4 that are the critical vacation days, so that we should continue to have the meeting. And also because when there's no August meeting, July and September are agonizing in terms of.
That's what I remember from Eric. He was pointing out that the catch-up of the agenda got quite long.
Right. I mean, even this August, we had 8 or 9 new applications,
Right.
which was,
Oh, it was tough,
it was
yeah.
very tough. So,
We should probably wait for him to weigh in on that
the only thing is
idea
that
of not
he
having.
probably will not be here because we have to edit it
Oh,
for
you-
October 1st. So,
Wait, say what again? What did you say?
we have to turn this in for October 1st.
Oh, for October, oh, turn it in.
So my thought on that would be, leave it on here, and when we get to next summer,
You could have
if
canceled
people
it.
are traveling or you punt off to where, the great beyond, you just say no meeting next month.
Okay.
Very
Makes
wise.
sense.
I mean, what would make your life easier? Which do you prefer? What makes, because I don't really care.
Schools
I
in
hope, I
session.
hope to be alive.
Schools in session.
I mean,
I'm present.
it would be,
Because we can also always, if we don't have a meeting in August, we can always have a special meeting too. We've done that before.
yeah. I mean, it calls for having the first week of August. I suppose it's a good thing to keep it there. We could always cancel it. It would be an opportunity to do some catch-up, just for things like regulation review and all those kinds of things that we try to fit in amongst all the other things, but it does not matter to me.
I think we leave it on here. and,
Yeah. we do.
We'll make a game day decision sometime mid-July.
Okay. So we need a vote just to endorse this, if whatever it is.
Are you?
I don't know.
Okay, do we need to, would like to make a motion to approve the proposed meeting schedule for the calendar year 2025?
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Thanks you guys for staying so long. We're done.
Adjourn.
We have to adjourn. We just need a motion to adjourn tonight's meeting.
Make a motion to adjourn tonight's meeting on September 10th, 2024.
Okay, so I second.
And I,
All
oh
in
yeah,
favor?
oh
All
yes.
right.
Thank you, Channel 79.